Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Associated Guests. As always, I am your host, Alfie Animus, here at the Bear in Mind channel. I've been sick a lot lately. Apologies for not being on yesterday, as promised. But we're going to start off with a little short by Foamy the Squirrel. That's right, the original master of counterculture. Someone not unlike South Park has grown as I've grown. And I'm happy to see that Foamy sees through it the same way that I do. So we're going to go with one of the newest videos posted by Foamy the Squirrel. Then we're going to jump straight into the lore of one Piers Morgan being completely owned for whatever reason. And then we'll get into the infamous interview. So let's get into it with Foamy the Squirrel.
The holidays, so let's keep this short. I got things to do, and so do you. To everyone out there who doesn't celebrate Christmas, stop bothering people who celebrate Christmas.
Exactly. And I understand, yes, Christians, at least in the past, have often pushed their beliefs on other people, but they don't do it that often these days. And let's face it, you can always tell the ones who do it because they actually genuinely care about you and or humanity, and the ones that are former drug addicts who just use Jesus as that new drug that hits oh so hard when you use it to cleave upon other people and their lives.
I don't want to hear crap
Cleave
about
like
how
with a
you're
cleaver.
offended by religion, Jesus, the concept of God, and a manger on someone's lawn. Like, where's all that tolerance we keep hearing your enlightened asses constantly screaming about, you know?
Well, first of all, tolerance only has to do with the people who preach it. Remember how people used to get on Christians and say, practice what you preach? Similar, but you have to say it to just about every single person in this instance.
Protect this. Be tolerant and accepting of others. And whatever other stupid topic you feel you need a virtual signal about every
I love
freaking
the
week.
virtual signal.
Somehow, though, all of a sudden, Christmas seems to be on the naughty list of cultural and religious sensitivity.
Yes.
It's kind of weird, right? It's kind of strange that you won't say a damn thing about Kwanzaa or Hanukkah for
Which, if I don't take too long watching this, I will probably get into the New York Christmas tree lighting this year.
fear of being labeled intolerant, but when it comes to Christmas, you'll bitch and moan like you just got a piece of coal stuck in your crack. Bit hypocritical, don't you think?
It hurts.
A bit, dare I say, intolerant of you? So, why is your narrow-minded, dogmatic, anti-holiday brain fixated on Christmas? Why? Santa didn't bring you V-Bucks last season? Didn't get the overpriced Lego set you wanted?
And you can usually tell the same people who hate their parents and or the concept of Santa are the same people who, because Santa didn't get them everything that they ever wanted when they were kids, then they found out it was just their parents and you got basically what your parents could fucking afford. Same thing with a lot of people that leave the church. I'm not particularly in the church myself. I haven't been in years. I don't consider myself a good Christian. However, I do respect all religions in, what they preach, so long as they practice what they preach. And
Problems with the family? Or
and yeah, I don't understand why it's okay to. I mean, to me, it's all okay or it's not. Nothing's okay. You can't have one religion that it's okay to dunk on, and then all the rest are off limits. That's just not the case. I make fun of Christianity. I make fun of Islam. I make fun of the Jews. Well, the religions in these things. And some of their followers. Not the religion as a whole necessarily, just the followers of said religion and why and what they believe, or what and why they believe.
maybe, perhaps, it's just not your thing, and you feel left out. Guess what? I don't care. Whatever your gripe is with the holiday, piss off. We're all fatigued with your idiocy, and no one is gonna keep living in fear of saying Merry Christmas to anyone anymore. Go home, play with your coal in the corner, and listen to Silent Night over and over until the sad sorrow creeps in and destroys your will to live, okay? We're all sick of it, all right? Some people just want to enjoy the holiday. They don't want to tiptoe around the eggshell of an ego that you have for fear that the term Merry Christmas might offend you. Nobody cares anymore. So, whatever.
I mean, don't get me wrong. It irritates me when people are just, Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas, unless it's like Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. Then, okay, whatever. But if you start saying it before the previous holiday, you're a psychopath.
I'm going to enjoy the holidays and say Merry freaking Christmas to everyone I can. They get offended too bad. Oh, yeah, and also, for those wondering, I'm not a religious squirrel, so don't go thinking I'm sitting in church all week. I don't have a particular political view that I side with. They all suck. All right?
Agreed.
I'm just making an observation of the usual human idiocy that's been going on for the last 20 years. Don't like it, don't care. Here's a big box of shut the hell up. Sorry, you can't return it. All sales are final. All sales are final on this big...
And I especially miss the days when the left, the liberals, used to preach, if you don't like what you're watching, change the channel. And people wouldn't do that. They would write letters and try to get the show canceled. Yes, that's right. The right used to get people canceled quite regularly. But as we, quote-unquote, progressed as a society, we learned to coexist for the most part. Apparently, a few leaders of a certain side didn't completely get the memo, but we got along for a while, or at least we remember doing it. People still got aggressive and got upset, but for the most part, we coexisted. It seems that anymore, the divide that keeps us from coexisting comes from one side. All they want to do is shit on certain people. It's hard to coexist with someone who just thinks you're evil for believing what you believe, especially when that belief's been around forever and has been the only one that's been forced to progress over time. But let's continue. We're going to get into when I first noticed Piers Morgan, which was when he got his old ass handed to him by a very young, fairly unknown at the time, one Ben Shapiro. Let's watch that on CNN.
Strong words from Vice President Biden, who heads the White House task force.
And as we watch this, because this is going to be backstory for Nick Fuentes, but these are the only times I've ever really noticed Piers Morgan for the most part. He's tried to act like he's more moderate these days. It's just not the case. He doesn't like anyone who infringes on the way that he speaks. He doesn't like anyone critiquing him, with the exception of Steven Crowder, who he kind of gave way to, because we all know that Steven Crowder usually comes with the facts, whether you like him or not. But let's see Piers Morgan, and note the way he does things. He's the king of gotcha, and that's why no one really likes him or respects him. They'll use his show to propel themselves, which is why you see a lot of YouTubers on there.
Force on guns. My next guest has strong words for me. He says I'm off the rails on guns in America. Ben Shapiro is editor-at-large at Breitbart.com and the author of Bullies, How the Left's Culture of Fear and Intimidation Silences Americans. So why am I off the rails, Mr. Shapiro?
Honestly, Piers, you've kind of been a bully on this issue, because what you do, and I've seen it repeatedly on your show, I watch your show, and I've seen it repeatedly, what you tend to do is you tend to demonize people who differ from you politically by standing on the graves of the children of Sandy Hook, saying they don't seem to care enough about the dead kids. If they cared more about the dead kids, they would agree with you on policy. I think we can have a rational political conversation about balancing rights and risks and rewards of all of these different policies, but I don't think that what we need to do is demonize people on the other side as being unfeeling.
And this is the best way to go up against someone like Piers Morgan, especially if they give you the first word. Notice he goes directly in. He's watched tapes the same way that you see in football movies and such. Hey, good morning, Evil Sizer. He goes in and he goes exactly for the plan of attack that we all know that Piers Morgan does. He'll come in with a video. He'll bring some kid who may have been at the school of maybe a school shooting, and he trots them out in front of you and makes you say the thing that he wants you to say in front of said kid. And he wants you to not stand on your laurels and try to explain to this kid why the school shooting happened. especially if you know the backstory on this. Ben Shapiro talks about it a lot. He's actually said that there was a kid from Sandy Hook. I think it was Sandy Hook at the time. That he had in the back ready to come out here in a second. You'll probably guess where it was going to happen.
About what happened in Sandy Hook.
How dare you accuse me of standing on the graves of the children that died there? How dare you?
I've seen you do it repeatedly, Piers.
Like I say, how dare you?
Well, I mean, you can keep saying that, but you've done it repeatedly. What you do, and I've seen you do it on the program, is you keep saying to folks that if they disagree with you politically, then somehow this is a violation of what happened in Sandy Hook. And you have yet, I'd really like to hear your policy prescriptions for what we should do about guns. Because you say that you respect the Second Amendment, and, you know, I brought this here for you so that you can read it. It's the Constitution. And I would really like for you to explain to me what you would do about guns that would have prevented what happened in Sandy Hook. If you want to do what you did in the UK, right, which is ban virtually all guns, that is at least a fair argument. And we can have a discussion about whether that's something that we ought to do or not.
I've made it very clear what I want to do, which is exactly what Mark Kelly wants to do. And in fact, rather than...
And he always brings in the names of people we're supposed to give a shit about. I don't care what anyone else believes. I believe what I believe, and you should believe as you believe. It shouldn't rely on anyone else's perspective of you, especially if you're young. The chances are the people who you're hanging out with right this second, unless you're a townie who's going to stay there forever, you're probably not going to find them or know them beyond a phone call every so often in the next 5 to 10 years. Be who you are, and if people like you, awesome. If they don't, who cares? You can find better ones.
Let's talk about that.
Rather than address your comments to me,
or more
about,
attuned to yourself,
standing on the graves of children at Sandy Hook, you can address them to Mark Kelly, because he agrees with everything that I've been saying, because he feels the same way, as does his wife. They're gun owners. They both respect the Second Amendment of the Constitution.
He keeps bringing up Mark Kelly like anyone gives a fuck who Mark Kelly
with
is.
Guns.
Well, they want to take away certain types of guns, obviously.
They want to take away assault weapons, which are capable with magazines.
Assault weapons doesn't mean anything. And the magazines he's speaking of only have roughly 33 to 40% more ammo. There are no fully automatic weapons allowed in America as far as I'm aware. And literally all semi-automatic means is you don't have to pull the hammer back or cock it every time. Literally all you have to do is pull the trigger and a bullet comes out. Or at least you don't have to cock it after every shot. It's literally all it means.
That we saw at Aurora and Sandy Hook of unleashing a ridiculous amount of bullets.
Well, this is a question I wanted to ask you, Piers, because I've seen you talk about assault weapons a lot, and I've seen Mark Kelly talk about assault weapons. The vast majority of murders in this country that are committed with guns are not committed with assault weapons, they're committed with handguns. Okay, so are you willing to ban handguns in this country across the country?
No, that's not what I'm asking for.
Why not?
Let me ask you...
Don't you care about the kids who are being killed in Chicago as much as the kids in Sandy Hook?
Yes, I do.
Then why don't you care about banning the handguns in Chicago?
We'll come to that. Let me ask you this. What was the weapon used at Aurora in the movie theatre? It was an
assault rifle, sure.
Okay. What was the weapon used in the Oregon shopping mall?
I believe it was an assault rifle, correct?
Okay. What was the weapon used at Sandy Hook?
It was an assault rifle.
What was the weapon used at the incident around Christmas when the firemen were lured to their deaths, the New York State firemen?
And bought illegally? That was an assault rifle.
Right, so the last 4 mass shootings in America were all the assault rifles.
And the vast
that is the reason, Mr. Shapiro.
And this is the tactic that Pierce uses over and over again. He only cares about what he cares about. He wants to talk about school shootings specifically, at least suburban school shootings. That's the only reason why the news really cares about these, if you look really into it. That's why they don't ever talk about anything that happens at schools in big cities.
Right. And you can smirk at me, and you can laugh at me.
I'm not smirking.
And you can accuse me of standing on the graves of dead children.
And being a bully, yes.
But that is the reason that people like me and Mark Kelly and...
I miss this Ben Shapiro. I love anyone who stands up to what is the mainstream and then basically just pokes them in the eye. That's the only reason I ever got into this guy. I don't care about a lot for what he does these days since he's become a big name. But he's done some very important things that needed to be done, like taking Piers Morgan specifically and CNN down a peg here.
Gabrielle Giffords want to have assault weapons like that removed from civilian hands.
Your passion on the issue
point.
doesn't really justify the rationale for why you want to ban assault weapons,
you
but
don't
not
understand
handguns.
why we want to remove the preferred weapon of choice, these killing machines,
well, I would like
from
you
the
to
hands of deranged young men.
All I'm asking is for you to be philosophically consistent. If what you're worried about is the removal of killing machines from the hands of deranged young people, then maybe we should talk about a blanket gun ban. And let's get to what the left really wants here. And you say that you're for
Why
the Second
Amendment. Why is it about
Amendment.
left or right? Because in Britain this never is about left or right, this issue. Why is it here?
Well, we can talk about Britain in a second. I think the reason that it's about left and right here is because fundamentally the right believes that the basis for the Second Amendment, and they believe in the Second Amendment, the basis for the Second Amendment is not really about self-defense and it's not about hunting. It is about resistance to government tyranny. That's what the founders said, and that's what the right believes in this country.
Which tyranny are you fearing yourself?
I fear the possibility of a tyranny rising in this country in the next 50 to 100 years. Let me tell you something, Piers. The fact that my grandparents and great-grandparents in Europe didn't fear that is why they are now ashes in Europe. So this kind of leftist revisionist history, where there's never any fear of democracy going usurpacious or tyrannical, is just that. It is fictitious.
Just to clarify your position then, the answer to Sandy Hook, as it was to Aurora, as it was to Gabrielle Giffords, as it was to Columbine and Virginia Tech, is you do nothing. Is that your position?
And that's not my position.
What is your position?
My position is that we have to calibrate laws that are designed to get guns out of the hands of bad people and keep guns in the hands of good people who want to buy them. This idea of more guns versus less guns.
How do you do that?
Well, I think one of the ways that you do that is by better screening for mental illness. I think that you do better background.
That's definitely one way. And I'll skip to the next video after I say this. Just because people don't necessarily concede to your point on a particular, hey, kept missing your live streams this week, and now I finally caught one. Hell yeah, it's good to see you again, YM. But let's just be honest. Most people, sorry, I kind of lost. I need to stop looking directly at the chat when I'm saying this, like I can actually see your faces. But people who don't like your necessarily prescription for a certain situation, it doesn't mean that they don't want to do, or just because you don't like it doesn't mean that they're not doing anything. The same reason that just because conservatives or people who believe in the Second Amendment, because that doesn't just lay under conservatives, hello, it's not like, yes, mental illness, security guard on site, maybe a teacher or two with a little bit of training, maybe for some extra money. And then at the same time, metal detectors. You need metal detectors. And who cares if it makes it feel like a prison? Most kids think that school is a prison anyway, because it kind of is. I mean, just look at the food. But we're going to continue on. Today, YM, we're doing a little bit of a deep dive before we jump directly into the Piers Morgan Nick Fuentes interview. I just want to show a couple more times where he kind of either got his ass handed to him here, or like we're about to see, he didn't like something that someone said, so he stormed off and decided that he would start speaking out against other people who didn't like what he said.
And I understand that you don't like Meghan Markle. You've made it so clear a number of times on this programme.
Even by the standards of a show in which confrontation is nothing new, this between two of its presenters this morning was extraordinary.
But yet you continue to trash her.
Okay, I'm done with this.
No.
Sorry, no.
Because she's the worst. Look, just because someone doesn't like a particular person, because they're a vacuous C-word, who claims that they don't like attention, but then always jump on a table and dance anytime anyone's back turns to them. They need the attention. They drive for it, and that's Meghan Markle. It's also Piers Morgan. Let's watch.
Sorry.
Do you know what? That's pathetic.
You can trash me, maybe not my
No.
See you later.
I'm being...
Sorry, can't do
This
this.
is absolutely diabolical behaviour.
The clash
it really
followed
is,
Piers Morgan's
but on both sides. Yes, he cried and ran off. It doesn't necessarily mean that they were wrong or that he was wrong. Look, people often think that the reason that people don't like Meghan Markle is because she's black. And again, it's not that. It's because she's the fucking worst. And so is whichever royal person she's married to. I can't remember. William or the other one. I don't care. No one cares about the royal family.
angry on-air reaction yesterday to the interview.
The only reason anyone cared about the Queen was because she was alive and in power, or the Queen, for so long. After all, let us remember that the Queen, when did Queen Elizabeth become Queen? She was 25 years old in 1952, and she was queen from then until about last year, and then finally Charles, 5 minutes before he passes, is now the king. He's not gone yet, but he's a lot closer than he was hoping to be. I mean, after all, his mother was queen at 25.
The Duchess of Sussex had given to Oprah Winfrey, Morgan saying he didn't believe her.
This is a 2-hour trash-a-thon of our royal family, of the monarchy, of everything the Queen has worked so hard for.
So were you thinking of harming yourself? Were you having suicidal thoughts?
Yes, this was very, very clear.
The fact that she'd spoken about her mental health resulted in a huge backlash against the GMB presenter.
She dies.
But the mental health charity Mind saying it was disappointed and concerned, and the watchdog Ofcom receiving 41,000 complaints. This evening, ITV issued a statement saying, following discussions with ITV, Piers Morgan has decided now is the time to leave Good Morning Britain. ITV has accepted this decision and has nothing further to add.
Right now, it's never been more important that as a nation we keep talking.
The incident will have been of particular...
All right, and that's pretty much it. Again, he stormed off because people kept getting on him, implying that he was racist, because he didn't like Meghan Markle, because he's an old Brit, and of course he will defend... he's an old mainstream Brit who will defend the Queen and the royal family to their dying breath. Fast forward to just this past week, Piers Morgan does it again. He falls directly back into his old ways and catches another big L.
You're a New York Times reader, an NPR fan, a Daily Wire subscriber, or an avid consumer of all things Tucker Carlson. For several months now, there's been no avoiding the subject of Nick Fuentes. And let's be clear, the main reason you're hearing about him is because he's popular. A large number of people, especially young...
Oh, yeah, sorry. YM, I don't know if I said it earlier. But yeah, I've been meaning to do the Piers Morgan-Nick Fuentes debate. I probably said it a second ago. I apologize. I'm definitely a cup of coffee short this morning, but it's brewing. But yeah, mostly just doing a thing on Piers Morgan.
Men
I probably
are interested
said that
in what
already,
he has to
but
say. What that says about our society and our culture is the subject of ferocious debate. For many people, it's a grave indictment of an insidious immorality. For others, he's a product of a culture which has turned on its own and left many young people feeling listless and bitter. He's either a litmus test for right-wing hypocrisy on free speech or a walking, talking manifestation of where the lines should be drawn. And a frankly preposterous amount of airtime has been spent on debating everything from his ideology to his sexuality and whether anyone should actually talk to him.
I love how he threw in sexuality right there.
If I were writing a glossary entry on the Streisand effect, I wouldn't put a picture of her next to it. I would put a picture of Nick Fuentes.
Why?
They have opted to not do so when it comes to Nazis like Nick Fuentes.
Fuentes takes this guy apart brick by brick. It's a full takedown.
My concern is that people who are a bit more moderate are deeply alarmed by Nick Fuentes.
I was very happy to see that, like, Nick Fuentes really passed that test with flying colors.
That fragmentation is being caused purposefully by a splinter faction of people led by a young man named Nick Fuentes.
That's the war. Can you get the beef prices down? Not crazy
Hey, look at that, Bill O'Reilly, the
that Nick Fuentes or these other loons say on social media.
Well, it looks like all the screaming about Nick Fuentes on the internet is finally dying down a little bit.
So now we had on this guy,
Tucker
this Fuentes guy, and never challenged him.
You should have Nick Fuentes on your show, and you could ask him questions about that.
The truth is, it doesn't make a lot of sense to spend all this time talking about Nick Fuentes, but not actually to.
And just realize all but maybe 2 or 3 of those shown just now are the fucking worst, and they're as mainstream as it comes.
Nick Fuentes. People who say you shouldn't give him a platform overlook the very obvious fact that he already has a platform of his own, which is often bigger than most of the people complaining. And he uses it to speak unchallenged to his many followers. It's on that basis I've...
Nick Fuentes does not speak unchallenged, I assure you.
...invited him to appear live and uncensored on my platform. And Nick Fuentes joins me now. Nick Fuentes, welcome to Uncensored.
Man.
Hi, great to be with you.
I don't know you.
The worst thing the worst thing about Nick Fuentes is how everyone who ever does anything like this for him, with the exception of maybe Steven Crowder, is that they make him look better comparatively. It's odd, and you'll get into it. I've like I said, I've seen some clips of this, but we'll get into the full thing here.
I don't think we've ever met. You can correct me if that's wrong. I know about you. I know that increasingly people are talking about you in a more mainstream environment than you may be used to. So for those of you who know nothing about Nick Fuentes, I want this to be an opportunity to get to the real person. I don't know who that person is, but I do want to use this opportunity to get there. I've seen you talk, as we prepared for this, in exchanges with people and on your show, saying you fear it's going to be very hostile, it's going to be an ambush, all those kind of things. I don't intend it to be overtly hostile. I don't intend to ambush you. I intend it to be an examination of what you said on the record, an examination of what you believe, right? Or what you say you believe, and an examination of what your rising popularity says about the state of the conservative movement in America. So those are my goals from this interview. What are your goals? Why are you doing it?
I thought it'd be interesting. And, you know, you've talked a lot about me on your show over the years, and this is the first time you actually extended the invitation. I think it might be the second, actually. I think we talked about doing it during A24 a few years ago, but you've talked a lot about me with the panel, and now you've extended the invitation to talk to me. And I think it'd be interesting for me to maybe clarify some positions and maybe get to know you a little better as well. So I'm looking forward to it.
There is a belief that you have two personas. There's one that you roll out now for podcasts and for shows like mine, where you come across as reasonable. And then there's your show on Rumble, where you often come across as having, you know, a very unreasonable view on things. This is what Coleman Hughes said about you.
Nick Fuentes knows exactly what he's doing. He is consciously playing this double game as part of a long-term strategy to become popular enough to take the reins of power, at which point he plans to pivot towards the extreme and unpopular policies that he advocates daily on Rumble.
So first of all, what is your response to that?
Well, first of all, I would say that Coleman Hughes is a propagandist. He works for the Free Press, which is run by Barry Weiss. So I think you have to consider the source. And Barry Weiss is a pro-Israel partisan. Free Press is just bought out by CBS for $150 million by Larry Ellison, or his son David Ellison. And so I think that's coming from a particular point of view. We can't pretend like that's coming from a vacuum or from some fixed position. That's coming from a propaganda outlet that's in favor of Israel. That's first. But second, I would say he is right about the two personas. And I think that everybody understands this on some level. On my show, I make jokes and I use rhetoric and I'm hyperbolic because for a long time I had an audience that was small on these like dissident platforms. I was on D Live for many years. A lot of people don't even know what that is. And so I had a small following, and we had sort of like an in-group sense of humor and memes and things like that. And you talk about it one way on a freewheeling live stream when I'm by myself and I'm ranting, and we make jokes and we play devil's advocate. We play with different positions. But then when you sit down in an interview like this one, and people ask me a good faith question, what do you actually believe? Well, then I clarify and I say, well, here I'm not joking. Here I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm not being rhetorical. I'll tell you precisely what I believe. As far as this idea that I'm going to get power and then turn into Hitler, that just sounds totally insane to me. I'll be honest. It just sounds insane.
Do you have aspirations for political?
It does. And I mean, I really do think it does. Could he be some kind of huge voice when in the realm of politics? It's possible. But at the same time, it really just depends on how much people talk about him. Honestly, the reason that Nick Fuentes has become such a big name is because he's pissed off the right people, and people keep flocking to him because he keeps getting the right people to talk shit about him. And that will endear you to so many. Just look at X on any given day.
How?
Not really. I think that if I wanted to run for office, I wouldn't say a lot of the things that I say. I don't know that a lot of people would vote for me. I tend to offend everybody, even a lot of people that like me. So no, I'm a truth teller. I like to tell the truth. I like to do my live stream.
Who is Nick Fuentes? Tell me about your upbringing. I know you grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. Tell me about your early years.
Or early how? Like my childhood or a little bit later?
Your childhood, yeah.
Well, I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago in LaGrange Park, as you say. My parents are ethnics. My father's half Mexican, half Irish. My mother's Italian. And they both came from a pretty rough upbringing themselves. They both were raised by single mothers, not because of divorce, but because both of their fathers had died. They endured a lot of dysfunction. And I think...
Hold on. These Just Stop Oil people have got to be the worst. Sorry, I'm scrolling as this is happening while I'm listening. And then this comes across my feed. Why are climate activists spray painting Charles Darwin's grave? He's been dead for 150 years. Pretty sure he had nothing to do with the oil trade. This is the same reason. And you have to understand, these are the same people who have been throwing tomato soup and other things on paintings, works of art, destroying them, probably. What does it have to do with oil? You're literally talking to your own base. Art is primarily something of the left. It is something that is a more liberal trait. Not to say that anyone else can't be artistic, but this is the people who have put these in these museums. The people who've made these and the people who applaud them primarily are the same people who believe in climate change. You're literally just talking to your own crowd, and maybe someone in power of the opposite side, or whoever the fuck you're actually talking to, will care. But desecrating a man's grave isn't going to get you any plaudits. Not really. I mean, only other people who are just as crazy as you, but they already believe. You're just old and you're pissed off because you've had either no success, or you're pissed off because you have success and you feel bad about it. That's it. Fuck off to 90% of activists. Only about 10% of them do it because they actually believe in it. They just want attention. It's the same thing as Meghan Markle and Nick Fuentes and Piers Morgan.
That's one of the reasons they came together, and they related to each other, and they wanted to create a normal upbringing for their children. They wanted to have a normal family life. And so they moved out to LaGrange Park away from the city, and they raised me and my sister and really put us first. I think that's a big reason why I tend to have a lot of these family values or Christian values. My mother quit her job and stayed at home to raise us. And so I have a very close relationship with my parents, with my sister. We're a very tight family. And we grew up in a pretty idyllic town. And maybe we can sort of get into a conversation about politics from this. I loved my upbringing. My mom stayed at home. My dad was working. We're in a mostly white suburb in Chicago. I was maybe half Catholic, half Protestant. It was a baseball town. I played baseball for many years.
I don't believe that.
In Chicago, we love our hot dogs. We have our baseball parade and get a hot dog. And so I love where I came from. I love the city. It's a working class city. I love the people here. They're very good, humble, down to earth, decent people. And I guess I had my political, not to jump ahead, but this is a big part of where my political awakening came from. I sort of left this bubble, if you could call it that. When I went to college in 2016, I went to Boston University, and I read a lot of things online, and I realized the country does not look like LaGrange Park. It doesn't look like Western Springs or Hinsdale or Elmhurst. It looks very different. The country's undergoing a radical transformation because of immigration.
Sorry, not going to lie. I was just looking it up, and I saw on IMDb, they got a really weird picture of him. Doesn't even look like him. But it's definitely him. I didn't know that they've done any kind of actual media. Sorry.
And so I saw that and I said, this is not really a desirable change. I don't like the south side of Chicago or the west side or LA or certain parts of Boston as much as I like where I came from. And I guess that's what made me an American nationalist. I said, I want to preserve my home and the things that are familiar to me and the things I like about my home, what makes it America. So that's a little bit about my background. I don't know where you want to go with that, but that's kind of where I came from.
My first obvious question is, were your parents immigrants to the United States, or were their parents, or were their grandparents? In other words, at some stage, I presume, there were immigrants in your family who came to the US. Is that correct?
There were. I believe my mother was 4th generation and my father was 3rd generation. So their ancestors came here on my mom's side in the 1860s, I believe, the first wave of Italian immigration. My father's ancestors, I think they came around at the turn of the century in 1900.
I know where he's going
so
with
your
this.
View of immigration...
And you know where he's going with this, because everyone always conflates legal and illegal immigrants because they call them undocumented. How can a person be illegal the same way they are in every other country?
And we'll get to the specifics about your views on immigration. Are they not affected at all by the fact that if it wasn't for immigration, you wouldn't exist as an American?
Well, I would certainly exist, but like you said, maybe not as an American. Certainly that's influenced in some measure. But I think that the kind of immigration that we had for a long time in the country, it's different than the immigration that we have now. And let's just say for openers, it's different immigrants. They're coming from a different place with a different culture, a different religion. It's not the same as it was. So first, you have a qualitative difference. My ancestors, for the most part, I have 3 European grandparents from Ireland and Italy, 1 from Mexico. They came from Europe. They came from a society where there's a common ancestry, there's a common religion, common civilization. The people that have come in since 65, since Hart-Celler, they're coming from China, India, the Northern Triangle, Mexico, Venezuela. And so...
And nothing's wrong with someone coming from said location. The problem lies when whole communities and whole lineages come and they all settle in the same... It doesn't matter so much in the big cities, but in the smaller cities, whole communities of people who don't even speak the same language. This is the one thing that gets me against people, because we have to have one common language. Sure, more Americans speak a non-English language. Yes, 100%. If you can learn another language, it's very fruitful. If nothing else, and I always inspire people to say this in words in the English language that aren't commonly used. It's always fun to find a way to make fun of someone and them not look at you and them not understand what the fuck you're saying, especially if you're doing it in English, which I have and can do. But it's always fun when you make fun of someone and they don't understand a word you're saying. But beyond that, it does absolutely help. If you travel, if someone from a place travels to where you are, I don't know, it's, at the very least, it's cool knowing what someone's saying. My favorite thing is to have someone say something mocking to me or saying something close by to someone else and them trying to get one over on you and then knowing their language. There's no bad that can be had from knowing another language. But English has to be the base language for this country at the very least. One, because it's the most commonly spoke, even with the influx of immigration. But 2, even in Star Wars, it's seen as basic. No, and in all other D&D. That's because they're made by people who speak those languages, at least originally. But there has to be a commonality. And you can't have things in common if you don't even speak the same language.
First, they're just different people.
Sorry,
secondly, it's a quantitative difference. There's way more, and it's an unceasing, always increasing wave. For the first 3 or 4 waves of immigration, you would have a major influx of immigrants, and then it would stop. And then you'd have another wave, and then it would stop. This one, it just keeps going up for 35 years, and it's too many. So that's really where I would draw the distinction between maybe where I originate from I would even just simply call that immigration. What this is an invasion. It's a completely different policy.
But you
can't
mentioned,
even call it the same thing.
But you mentioned Mexico in that list, and your father is half Mexican. So,
yeah,
I mean, by your criteria, part of the invasion would include your father, presumably, and his immediate descendants who came from Mexico.
Not really true, because when my father's ancestors came here, it was a small fraction of the total immigrants that came from Mexico. I don't believe that we should have zero immigrants forever, or even zero immigrants from non-white countries. But you have to draw the distinction. My father's father, he was here in the 40s and 50s. It was his parents, or I believe either his parents or grandparents, that came here even earlier. Up until 1965, 90% of the immigrants were coming from Europe. I have no problem with that. If we have 10% of them coming from Mexico or Latin America, maybe that's reasonable, but that's not what it is now. Now you've got 10 million illegals in 4 years under Joe Biden, and you got millions more legal immigrants from China, India, Venezuela, El Salvador, and it's so many with no break for assimilation, and they're all from non-white countries. It's transforming what America is. And again, that's the distinction. That's what makes it unacceptable.
I always believe everybody's
I don't particularly care what color a person is. Again, you have to be able to not so much assimilate to the extent of... See, when people think assimilate, they think the Borg, because they would always do what? Assimilate people. That's not necessarily what it means. It just means you have a few basic beliefs, a few basic values as a country, as a whole. You know, you don't want people killed in the streets. You know, of course, you want certain things like rape and murder to be illegal and certainly frowned upon at the very least. But when you have people migrate here, specifically on one of those cases, I'll say one, it should be obvious which one was legal 5 years ago in some of these countries, or is still legal. You can't assimilate if you move them here in mass and put them all in the same place. Spread them out across the country or whatever, but people have to assimilate somewhat. And this is why letting people in illegally and never have them go through a naturalization process is madness.
Product of their environment. Right? I've interviewed thousands of people. I mean, it may be 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people from all different walks of life. But the one common theme I would say is everyone's a product of their environment. And I was reading some stuff about you in the last few days. There was an episode of your podcast where you talked about your father, Bill Fuentes, and how he wouldn't take the fact.
And again, right here, I will say this before he gets into it, because I saw this part. He never should have said his name. Your father, sure, but don't say his name. And Piers Morgan would be like, I feel bad for that. I said that. I shouldn't have said it. I wouldn't have done it again. But he had said his full name in that interview as well. I can't remember who it was with. I think it was when he was talking to Dr. Phil after this. I've seen a few follow-ups. But he mostly just gets people on. Most of them, except for, again, Steven Crowder, come on there to be like, no, it's all right. You know, you didn't do bad. You didn't do bad. Especially the bits where you screamed that he was a virgin for like 30 minutes, which we'll see coming up.
Family, including you, to certain restaurants because he believed they were associated with African Americans. We would be deciding where to go to eat, you said. What are we going to do for dinner tonight? It was
the
a
way
running
he's smiling is just like,
me and my sister would
yeah,
say
that's
Applebee's,
dead.
and my dad would say we would never eat at Applebee's. Not in a million years should you be caught dead, Fuentes said about Applebee's. Go to a different restaurant, a local restaurant. No Applebee's, no Red Lobster. That is commonly known as black fare. And you also shared another story about your family and restaurants. Said, before me and my sister were born, my family had a saying about Olive Garden that contains the N-word that we're not allowed to say. So my question, based on that anecdote that you say on your own podcast, is do you think you grew up in a racist environment, that your father was inherently racist, and that thought process moved to you?
Well, I would say it's a new low. I've been attacked for being a racist many times, but to attack my father, to attack my parents based on anecdotes, I would say that's sort of a new low.
Hang on, it's your anecdote.
Yeah, but he's not here to defend himself.
You are.
And my parents.
And that's another thing. I've seen the clip. I saw it on, I think it was Steven Crowder. Fuentes made that like 10 years ago. Like he was like 19 or 20 years old. And the way he told the story, it was just like a little story about his dad. And his dad was joking when he said it. At least under the inflection that I saw. But he's taking something he said 10 years ago completely serious, like it's something he still believes. Again, I don't watch Nick Fuentes' current content. I'll watch him on stuff like this, but I haven't watched any of his actual podcasts, like ever.
You told me, as I said at the start, Nick, to be clear.
No, it's not an ambush,
Nick,
but
to be clear,
I think
I'm
everybody
not
understands.
ambushing you. I'm literally reading an anecdote that you revealed on your podcast. It's you that's put it in the public domain.
I know.
I'm simply asking you whether my assessment of that, which is that your father didn't want to take you to certain restaurants because of what you refer to as, they were commonly known as black fare, whether that attitude to African Americans in that instance permeated to you. It's a reasonable question.
Yeah, no, like I said, I think everybody knows what that is, but I'll address it. I'll engage with it, and I'll defend my father from the charge of racism.
Sure.
No, my parents are not racist, and they've never been racist. I'll tell you about my parents. They used to have a school in Chicago in the South Loop where they instructed people on how to shoot firearms. It was a security school, and most of the clients were black. And I believe actually one of their clients was Larry Hoover's son at one point, sort of a funny story. And so most of their clients would come in from the south side of Chicago. My grandmother, she grew up in the projects in the city. And so my family being in Chicago, being ethnics, being Italian, Irish, Mexican in the west side on Taylor Street, all over the city. My family for many generations have lived near and around black people. And look, my views about black people and their views about black people are shaped with experiences with black people. And what they will tell you, what my parents would say if they were here, is that for many, many years, the older generations of black people were very respectful, very humble, very decent. In fact, my grandma used to have an anecdote. She grew up in a lot of dysfunction. Her mother was mentally ill, and they would be having dinner in the projects, and there'd be so much chaos and dysfunction and disagreement and fighting. And she would look across the way out the window at a black family in the other apartment, and they'd be holding hands around the table saying grace. And this is sort of the culture that used to prevail. But now what you have in the city is that there's no accountability for the black people. And now Chicago has become a complete dump because these teenagers go out and they take over the city. They call them teen takeovers. That's the euphemism for it. They're teenagers, but they all come from the same neighborhood. They drive up there and they mug people and attack people, and they destroy cars and destroy shops. We had the Festival of Lights a couple of weeks ago. It's supposed to be a family event, and they light up the trees, and they, there's a big parade. I was in the parade one year, and you had a bunch of black people there shooting each other. 7 people shot, a 14-year-old killed in the Magnificent Mile. And I know there's a lot of black people that feel the same way about this. They say, we've lost control of the city and we're looking for accountability. We have a lot of black people that are always outraged about racism, outraged about attitudes from white people, but they're never ashamed of some of these behaviors, never ashamed of some of the things that go on. And that's why I think there's a lot of negative attitudes these days. And so, again, I think those attitudes, you say I'm a product of my environment. I am. And so are my parents and my grandparents. Unlike you, because you're not even American, in Chicago, we have to live in a.
And then that wasn't a bad method to go on. Say that whole rant and then throw a diss at him, an old white Brit, for not being an American, to show that it's not really about race, even if it is. But not a bad tactic. I don't know. Like, again, I don't watch Fuentes. I'll probably say that at least 3 more times in the first hour, but yeah, not a bad tactic. And as you can see, Piers is just, it hasn't really started already, but it's going to get to a point where it feels a lot like that Shapiro debate he had. Not quite that bad, but close.
A big, diverse city where there's a lot of different kinds of people, and I think anybody in Chicago will tell you the same.
I live in London. It's one of the biggest and most diverse cities in the world.
But it's not the same.
Well, actually, it's a big diverse city. The only difference is we don't have the gun violence because we don't have guns. That's a whole different story. I don't want to get into that with you. I have got into that before in America.
You got a knife problem. You got sword problems.
We have problems with...
Yeah, he doesn't want to get into the gun debate and get his ass handed to him on that again.
Have Aladdin.
We have problems with violent crime. I make no pretense of it. So the idea that somehow I'm cosseted in London because I'm not in Chicago...
I didn't say that.
Well, you kind of implied it, but I guess my point about the environment, I'm not saying you are a product of your environment. I'm saying most people are in some capacity. When I read that anecdote, which just to remind you, it's not something I have put out there. You told this story, right? And you said that
you said this. We're looping. You said this
already. But you haven't really directly, I think, responded to it, which is whether your father would not take you to certain restaurant chains because he associated them with black Americans. Is that true?
No, well, see here, if you're in America, you would say that Olive Garden is not real Italian food. Applebee's, TGI Fridays, this stuff is a load of crap. My dad was just a food snob, but no, it's got nothing to do with that. My best friend in first grade was a black guy. We're not a racist family. So
okay, so when you told the story, I'm just curious. So when you told that anecdote, which clearly on the face of it is racist, right? You're basically saying your father made racist decisions about where you would go as a family to eat. Are you saying? No. Well, I'm just going to ask you a question. Are you saying that when you told that story, you didn't mean to infer that he was racist? And do you understand why when somebody like me reads that anecdote for the first time, as I did this week, I reach a different conclusion?
Well, I understand what you're doing, which is a sort of making of a murderer. How did he become racist? Well, his father didn't eat an Olive Garden because he said that's not real Italian food. Hang on, can I? What's with the interruptions? Can I explain?
I'm literally reminding you of something you said on your show, which led me to conclude a certain thing. If I'm wrong, tell me.
Yeah, it was said in jest as a humorous anecdote, and now you're trying to spin it into a narrative, which is his parents are racist. He comes from a long line of racists. And I think everybody knows my parents are boomers. And these people come, well, you're a boomer, I guess, too, in a way, 60. Right? You were born in what, 19? Yeah, so you're a boomer also. Or maybe you're a Gen Xer. I suppose it's sort of on the cusp. But it's a humorous anecdote. These are kind of the attitudes of baby boomers in society.
I mean,
you're trying to spin it into a narrative, which is you're a product of your environment. Your dad's racist because of this joke. Now you're a racist. And I don't think that's a fair characterization.
Okay. People can make their own minds up. They can go back and listen to you say it. I mean, the beauty of what I'm going to talk to you about in this interview is that almost all of it is just going to be reminding you what you have said and asking you what you meant.
And boy, does he mean that. Look, I know it's going to seem like I'm a huge Nick Fuentes fan by the end of this. It's not so much that. I just really don't like Piers Morgan. And it's fun to watch him, as you'll see eventually, squirm. And we can also get into how I think his wife would probably say similar.
Your position about that story is that it was a joke, okay? I want to come to something else you said. This is where you talk about Jews, women, and blacks. Let's just take a listen.
They're always coming up with, no, it's not the Jews. No, it's not women. No, it's not blacks. It's actually really complicated. No, it fucking isn't at all. Jews are running society. Women need to shut the fuck up. Blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part. And we would live in paradise. It's that simple.
Okay. Would you like to clarify what you meant there?
That's all true. That's 100% true. Everything I said in that clip is true.
And again, this is not something that someone like Piers Morgan would expect him to say. He's presenting all these things that he, in fact, has said. And I've been waiting for someone to, maybe someone has, I just haven't seen it. But I've been waiting for someone to be like, yeah, it's all true. Everything that you have on me, everything that I've ever said, I agree with me. Yes. And he's just like, he was supposed to backtrack.
Including that blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part.
Yeah. Yes.
But all of them?
No, for the most part.
What does the most part mean? What percentage of American blacks would you like to see in prison?
whatever the percentages of the murderers. I think it's 1 in 20 black men will commit a murder in their lifetime. So maybe let's say that 5%.
Oh, so you're talking about black people who murder people?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But you didn't say that.
That's
You
the
just
crime
said
problem.
blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part. You didn't clarify that you were talking about black murderers.
Right. No, you're right. That's a good addition to that. That's a great point.
Do you think it's funny or?
Yeah, I do. I think it's hilarious. I think it's totally true.
Do you think a black American would find it funny? You think that blacks should be imprisoned for the most part?
Blacks are my biggest fans. I get high fives all the time. They say, Nick Fuentes, I love your show. They agree with me. And you want to know why? Here's the difference. Black people are the most victimized by other black people. You think black people want to live in the hood and the ghetto and get shot all the time? That's what happens in the south side of Chicago. You should come here. I'll take you there. We could go to Garfield Park.
My son
we could
went
go
to Chicago
Inglewood.
University for a year, actually, several years ago.
Yeah, that's a bubble. That's a bubble. You think you're in Chicago and Hyde Park? You don't know Chicago. Go a little bit west, see what it's like over there. And I'll tell you, black people agree with me because they're tired of it too. And maybe not most of them.
And this is one thing, and Piers Morgan is another one of these people. He loves India because he went there and it was all very nice and chic and all this and that. And he loved the food. No, you don't like Indian food. You like Indian cuisine. All that posh stuff that we get from all these other countries, that's really, really good. It's very much Americanized, and it's very much only what the elite in those countries eat. Everyone else in a lot of these countries, they eat whatever they can get their hands on.
But a lot of them agree with what I say about that because they know how it is. That's why the first thing they do when they make a little bit of money is they go and leave to another neighborhood.
Okay, so what was just remind me again, the percentage of black men who commit murder in America. What was the percentage you gave me?
It's 1 in 20. 1 in 20.
It's 1 in 100.
No, it's 1 in 20.
No. Less than 1 in 100 black US men commit murder. That's the most up-to-date crime statistics in America.
That's not true. I've seen other statistics. They say 1 in 20 will eventually commit a murder.
So your rate means that you're saying that 5 times as many black men commit murder as the official crime statistics say.
Either way, that's
there's a report, I believe, on X by Data Hazard. I'll have to go and double check that for you. But yes, there's some pretty shocking evidence that says that it's far more alarming than you would think.
Okay, but you would accept that the official crime statistics are 1 in 100, or you wouldn't accept that statistic?
I don't know. I don't have it in front of me, but I've seen other evidence. Like I said, Data Hazard on X, I believe, produced a report about a year ago. It said 1 in 20. But, I mean, whether it's 1 in 20 or 1 in 100, that's a lot of people, Piers. I mean,
sure,
this is
a lot of white
problem.
people commit murder too. Well, they do, don't they?
Okay, but it's about proportionality. I mean, white people are 65% of the population. Blacks are 13%. And I think anybody would tell you that more black people proportionally commit violent crime than white people. And people vote with their feet. People would rather pay a much higher property tax.
Most mass shootings.
What's with the interruptions?
I'm sorry.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
He does interrupt him a whole lot.
You know, you look at in Chicago, in New York, these neighborhoods are so stratified. People would rather pay a high tax rate. They'd rather pay a much higher property value to live in a less diverse, less black neighborhood because they don't want to live around the violence. And I think that when you look at even on the public transit, the subway, the blue line, you know, people don't want to go there because they know who occupies and menaces the public transit. It is these people like Daniel Penny had to deal with. It's people like Irina Zarutska had to deal with. And that's just the uncomfortable reality.
You've also said you don't want to live near black people. Let's take a listen to this clip.
I'm a new generation of white person. I'm not living around blacks. Sorry.
I love how they put his face.
I want white kids,
he doesn't care.
I don't want my white kids bringing home black people to marry.
Should he? Sure.
It's racial for me.
But he absolutely doesn't.
And call me racist. Oh, very Christian of you. I don't give a fuck.
I mean, it couldn't be clearer, really, unless you want to say that's another of your jokes. But you're basically saying, yeah, I'm a racist, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
You're fine with saying you're a racist?
Totally. I think everybody's racist. I think everybody, if we're being honest, is racist. I think everybody, the only people that aren't racist or pretend not to be are white people to their detriment. Everybody else is racist.
But earlier in the interview, you went really got aggrieved at the idea that your father was a racist. You wanted to make emphatically sure
my father's...
He's not.
Because my father doesn't share my same views on that.
So he's the exception to the everyone's a racist.
Well, everybody's a little bit racist. You're right. So maybe everybody... The difference is you're attacking my father. You know, he could get fired from his job.
I'm not attacking your father.
You are.
No, I'm not. I don't know your father. And to be clear, I have no knowledge about him at all
Well, then let's leave him out of it. Let's leave him out of it if you don't know him.
Hang on, Nick. You put that story into the public domain on your show. I'm simply reminding you of what you told everybody, millions of people, about your father. If you now want to retract it, fine. If you want to say it was a joke, which is what your position was earlier, fine. But I'm allowed to put to you things you've said publicly. That's not unfair. That's not me targeting your father.
It's definitely not unfair.
You put that story about him out
You know
there.
What you're doing. You know what you're doing.
I'm asking you about a pretty shocking anecdote, which to me looked like you were saying your father made decisions about where you as a family would eat based on skin colour of people who worked at these places. If you say, or use them, if you say that is not what you meant, that's fine. You can respond any way you like. But the idea I can't ask you about it without you saying I'm attacking your father is ridiculous.
Well, you are, and you know what you're doing. And there's a political culture in America where if you have the wrong views, you get fired from your job. And my father has a job. And if you go on here and say, you charge him with racism or something, and I'm put in a position where I don't look like I'm sticking to my guns if I don't say my father's a racist, you're putting him in jeopardy, and he's not here to defend himself or explain his views. And it's very low, and I think you know exactly what you're doing, and people can see what you're doing. I'll defend my views, and I think that, you know, so let's leave him out of it. Let's just not talk about my father, because my father isn't here. I'm here.
Okay, well,
I'll
then do you accept that you shouldn't talk?
I'll defend the anecdote.
Listen, that's fine. But then do you accept you shouldn't talk about your father on your show? And you shouldn't tell...
Absolutely not. Absolutely
not. So
not.
it's fine for you to put a story out there which would make most people who listened to that story or watched it at the time on your show conclude that he was racist. It's fine for you to do that. But if I then ask you about it, I'm the one who's being unfair and I've crossed a line. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you're being malicious.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Listen, people are watching this live. They can draw their own conclusions about whether what I just did...
And they will.
Yeah, and I'm sure afterwards, by the way, you'll say, he ambushed me with your own... With your own words.
Whoa.
With your own words.
That's a little presumptuous. I'm not going to say it's an ambush, but I think that's a low blow. And I think you know what you're doing, and that's fine. You're a tabloid journalist. I expected that. I don't think it's an ambush because I knew it would be like this. And people will see what you're doing, and I think they'll say it's low. But as far as you want to talk about racism, I do. Let's talk about racism.
Okay,
let's leave my dad out of it.
Look, you've admitted you're a racist, correct?
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
Own it.
Okay, that's fine. You're perfectly entitled in a free democratic society to stare down the barrel of his camera and tell me you're a racist. People can judge you accordingly. Many people who have assumed that you're a racist will now have heard it from your own lips. That's fine.
There you go.
That's the point. The point of this interview is to go over the things you've said, which have led people to reach conclusions about you, and to ascertain whether those conclusions are fair and reasonable or not. That's it.
Thank
I want
you.
to play you another clip. This is what you talk about why white people are justified in being racist. Let's take a listen to this.
First, white people are every single bit justified in being racist. Every single bit justified, to the extent that that means going out of your way to avoid black people when you see them.
I mean, what do you expect him to do seeing himself? He puts it out there to the public. He's not ashamed of it. Use your own judgment. To the world, use your own judgment and decide whether or not you want to watch either one of these guys, really. Again, I've watched maybe one or two of Piers Morgan's show. If he has two people on who I know are going to get into it, it's fun for me. I've never watched anything but a couple clips here and there of this guy. It's not that hard. I find some of his shows interesting, mostly when he squirms. And I don't know. I'm mostly just surprised he has a fan base. But you got to hand it to the guy. He sticks by what he says.
You stand by
Absolutely.
that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So white people should go out of their way to avoid black people when they see them.
Absolutely. They would be wise.
Why?
Again, that's something he said in
Because
public.
it's a lose-lose proposition. If you're Irina Zarutska and you don't walk the other way, you get stabbed to death and you die. If you're somebody else and you walk on the subway and you stand near a black person or something, maybe it's fine. It's a lose-lose proposition. So no, I think that white people have been beaten into submission, that we're afraid to tell the truth about it. And the truth is that when you go into these major cities like New York or Chicago, I believe she was in North Carolina, there is a menace, which is young, black, adolescent men. They're extremely violent. And we have been told that we have to pretend like they are every other person. We have to be colorblind to that. And we're supposed to go and be in the midst of all this danger. And I think that at this point, it's gotten out of control. You look at the BLM movement, they said that the reason that black people, are violent, or the reason there's crime, is because of police brutality, or redlining, or all these other things. They said we need to get rid of the police. We need to defund them. And a lot of cities did. A lot of cities like Chicago, for example, the police changed the rules of engagement. They don't chase them. It's not a felony if you...
Well, the reasons there's crime... Look, I will agree that the reason that... I mean, we've all seen the videos of how certain people act when they are pulled over for even the most minute of reasons. You can definitely kind of see why they would react in a certain way, for the most part. But that's not where crime comes from. Crime comes from all kinds of things. Usually depends on the person. But the idea of police exist, therefore there's crime, is ridiculous. And it's the same way that they get their crime reports down now. They don't arrest people for committing said crimes, as you can see. And even if they do, they get off via the public defender. Or if the DA is trying to send a message.
Steal a certain amount of merchandise, they won't chase them on foot. And now the city's totally up for grabs. And now, whether you're in the Gold Coast or whether you're on the Mag Mile or you're in the worst neighborhoods in the city, you might get shot, you might get mugged, someone might run up on you. And I tell my followers, it is better to be perceived as racist or racist and walk the other way and maybe keep your life than to say, I'm a good anti-racist. I don't mind that this person's making me uncomfortable. Maybe he's looking a little froggy. I'm going to sit down because I'm a good person and get stabbed, mugged, whatever. And by the way, this is a strategy. They call it the friendly stranger. There's a crew of them. They do this in Chicago. They stand outside bars, black people. They approach strangers. It's a robbery crew. And they pretend to be a friendly stranger, and then they mug them. And stupid white people say, oh, hi, yeah, nice to meet you. You know, they grin, they laugh, they put up with the nonsense, and then they get mugged, or worse. Sometimes they get executed. And so as a white person...
How do you feel about mass shootings at school?
I think they're bad.
Who do you think commits the vast majority of the mass shootings?
I'm sure it's
schools?
white people.
Right. So how do you feel about that?
Clearly it's bad.
I think that white people do more antisocial violence. I think black people participate in more gang violence. I think that's the difference.
What's the difference to the victims?
The number?
There's no difference to the victim, but it's a different kind of crime. And it's a different proportion also. Do you know what percentage of white people are school shooters?
I know that the vast majority of mass shootings in schools in America this century were perpetrated by young white men. And I'm
and
just
what proportion of what proportion?
I'm curious.
What proportion?
I'm curious whether your advice would be to people who have kids in these schools.
Wait, is my mic working?
What proportion? Should they avoid white people at school? Should people with the kids at school avoid young white men at school?
No.
Okay.
Do you know what per capita means? Do you know proportionality? There are more black people proportionally that engage in violent crime or are involved in gangs, especially in these major cities, than there are white people that are school shooters compared to the entire white population. And everybody understands that.
And most of them look like Mark Zuckerberg.
Two-thirds of mass shootings at school perpetrated by white people.
And that's
But what proportion of white...
That right here is why Piers Morgan is the worst at this. He didn't react at all. He didn't even listen to the answer to the question that he was given, and a lot of mainstream journalists do this on the left and the right. They waited for them to finish talking, completely glided by what was said, and went straight into what they were setting up, even if it doesn't really fit in this case, which is why he's making the face that Baby Dinosaur makes on, dinosaurs.
Men commit school shootings. That's the question.
I've just told you. It's 60-65% of school shootings by white people.
You're telling me what proportion of school shootings are committed by white people. I'm saying what proportion of white people have committed school shootings. Are you playing dumb, or are you just not that smart?
What difference does that make
difference?
to the children lying dead on the ground?
See, now you want to jump on the victims. The difference is you're asking, would you fear white people or black people? And that's the difference. The difference is in terms
what I'm saying
of
to you is, by your logic, if we now have agreed that the vast majority of mass shootings in schools are committed by white people and predominantly young white men, then presumably your advice would be to avoid young white men because they perpetrate these massacres. But it won't be because they're white, right?
So are you playing dumb, or are you actually dumb?
Maybe
it's
I'm
about
dumb.
proportionality.
Maybe I'm dumb.
You are because you're, well, I don't think you are dumb. I think you're smart, actually, but you're deliberately avoiding per capita. And everybody knows that's the difference. What proportion of...
All right. I'm going to take a quick intermission here. no. Oh gosh, guys, I'm sorry. I just realized my intermission screen has been defaulted. Okay. Sorry about that. We'll get back into this. Just went and grabbed me something to eat real quick.
White men are school shooters. It's probably 0.00001%. What proportion of black men have committed violent crimes? It's probably like 5%. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but it's very high. And I would add to that, even as it concerns schools, why do you think parents pay a super high property tax to live in a school district where there's white people? Because they know that if they go to the black school, it's going to be the Bloods and the Crips. It's going to be gangs. It's going to be, you talk about school shootings. Nobody talks about all the school shootings that are committed by gangbangers in and around the school.
And I don't, that's a hilarious face to freeze that on. But I don't know about for the most part, but at least as far as white people go, but I do know that a lot of my friends who moved to my hometown from the big cities, especially the ones, there were some white ones too, but mostly the ones that weren't white. They moved there because they were trying to get their kids away from the gang violence, which was prominent in the 90s.
And all the other violence that's associated with that. I mean, these schools in the south side of Chicago, it's just not livable.
I have an answer for you, Nick. So the proportion of the population who carry out mass shootings is actually the same for black and white.
For white people, the proportion of
the proportion
again,
of the population.
Are you hearing it? No.
See,
What's
I think the trouble with your
proportion?
statistics is a lot of them don't bear much scrutiny. We have a bunch of fact checkers checking all this in real time because you do have a tendency to just come out with a lot of old baloney. And when you say,
okay.
I mean,
well, it's true.
You're kind of talking to
when
yourself
you're confronted with reality, you don't like it.
What's the figure? What proportion of white people have committed school shootings? With white people as the denominator and white people that have committed school shootings as the numerator, what's that percentage?
For both black and whites, the proportion of the population who carry out mass shootings generally is about the same.
No. Tell me the number, and then
the only focus of your attention is the black shootings, the black crime. You don't want to live around black people.
Not really.
You want to avoid black people. You don't want interracial marriages or relationships that may produce black people. And yet, when I point out to you that there are many parts of crime in America where actually there's a majority of white people that perpetrate them, you don't care. You don't have any interest in that. It doesn't exercise your mind. Maybe because
no one's buying this. This
kids.
Argument lost. No one is buying this. Everybody understands per capita, and people can even see what you race ahead and say, well, we're comparing the proportion of white and black school shooters. I said, no, compare the proportion of school shooters that are white versus violent criminals that are black, because that was the basis of the monologue, is that you're very likely, if you encounter black people or a young black man in the city, that you're going to be the victim of a violent crime, of a robbery, a mugging, a car theft, a carjacking, or a murder. That's the difference, and it's about proportionality. And everybody sees past that.
That's why
because we all live in reality. You want to talk about product of your environment. People that live in New York, Chicago, LA, we live in reality. We live in this environment, and we see what it's like. And the threat, the danger, in terms of probability, it's not even comparable. And I would say this, to your point. If you're in a high school and truly, if you see a white person who looks like a little autistic, he's got the SSRI stare, and he reaches for a backpack, people joke and say, run. Similarly, if you see a jalopy pulling up with a bunch of black people in it and they got their pants around the ankles, you're going to run also. And I'm saying the same thing. The difference is, the latter happens much more often. It's much more common. In Chicago, there's like 10,000 carjackings and car thefts every day. It's in the thousands. It happens all the time. How many mass shootings committed by autistic SSRI white people? I don't even know. I mean, it's probably in the single digits in the last decade in this city. That's the difference, and everybody knows that. But you're really just trying to carry water for liberal ideology. It's an ideological position.
No, I'm really not. I can absolutely say, yes, there is way too much black on black crime, for example, involving guns in Chicago.
And black on white, also.
Yes, but there is way too much gun violence in Chicago, right? I mean, it's indisputable. I've got no problem saying that. The difference is I don't then lead myself into a thought process where I have to avoid all black people in case they shoot me. And you've already conceded that you are a racist. So when people hear you then say, I don't want to be living anywhere near black people, they already have heard you say, I'm a racist, so they assume you're doing that because of people's skin.
I myself, I don't like living around the poor whites like me. Mostly because I grew up in meth country.
Color. I don't think you would probably dispute that, right?
Well, you're separating two different things. The monologue when I said I don't want to live around black people, that was after Irina Zarutska got shot. And it's true. I mean, they are a largely in this city, in Chicago, the South Side, the West Side, huge criminal population. And I don't want to live anywhere near it. And I do. I want to live in a white neighborhood. I think that that's extremely desirable. And I think even black people do.
Nick, you're perfectly entitled to that view. But when you have obviously prefaced all this by saying, I am a racist, unashamedly, then people will assume that all your thought processes about all of these issues are driven by an aversion to people based on their skin colour, which is the purest personification of racism.
Well, it's not an aversion. I would say it's the opposite. I like my own people. My own people are familiar to me, and I think that's true across the board. I think that people seek out other people that are like themselves, and every other group does this, whether it's blacks, Hispanics, Asians. You know, I get a lot of attacks when I talk about that I'm against interracial marriage. And what's funny is that every other group is against interracial or interethnic marriage. Jews,
but you're the
Chinese,
you're the product of an interracial marriage.
Yeah, I mean, that's debatable.
Not
Let's
really.
say for the sake of argument, sure.
No, you're the product of an interracial marriage, and your father is part Mexican. You're literally,
for the sake of argument,
the very person you've just told me you want to avoid.
What race is Hispanic? Is that a race?
Well, what do you think it is?
I'm asking you, what race is Hispanic?
Hispanic, of course it's a race. It's called Hispanic.
It's a mix between two races. It's a mix between indigenous Americans
and Europeans.
It's not
white, though, is it? It's not white.
Well, apparently you're more of a racial purist than me. You got like
not
a
really.
one-drop
You just
rule
keep
thing
saying you
going,
only want to live in a white neighborhood, but you're literally from a mixed race background yourself. You've literally got Mexican blood.
I know, and I live in a non-white neighborhood too. I'm trying to get out of here, though. But I'm trying to get out. But here's the thing:
do you have any non-white? Do you have any non-white?
And that is the thing. I mean, even if you look on military IDs or IDs in general, it would always say Caucasian Hispanic or Caucasian non-Hispanic.
Friends, genuine question.
Most of my friends are non-white. Most of my friends are not, and non-white people love my show.
How many are black?
The honesty.
How many of your friends are black?
Many of them, like at least a dozen.
Wow.
Ye being one who you know, Sneeko being another who you also know.
Yeah. So how do they feel when you say you just want to be away from any black people, walk away from them?
Well, you know what Ye told me? I'll tell you verbatim what he said. That it doesn't come from a place of.
And they cut it, as you can see that hard cut there.
He told me, I'll tell you verbatim what he said.
Like watch.
That it doesn't come from a place of, and you use the word aversion. That's the.
He couldn't say it because it was Nick Fuentes saying the N-word, from what I've heard. I haven't seen the uncut clip because I don't know if it's out there.
First thing I'll actually dispute.
Okay.
It's not an aversion on the basis of skin color, because that would seem to suggest it's like a stubborn, irrational bigotry. I don't consider myself a bigot. I consider myself a racial realist. I'm realistic about how the races are, and I speak provocatively about it. And I speak provocatively about our tribalistic instincts and tendencies as human beings. And I'm not a liberal ideologue that says that over time and with enough education, we're all going to see this great brotherhood where we're colorblind and everybody's the same. You know, I don't think that's ever going away. I think that race is real. It's not.
I honestly think that if a lot of these mostly white liberals wouldn't focus on it so much and have movements such as the anti-racist movement, which isn't something to where we try to eradicate racism. It's where everyone admits that they are racist, at least if you're white, which is factually correct. I think is it Ibram X. Kendi who said that?
Just skin deep. It matters to us and it matters to each other. And black people know that, and Hispanics know that, and Asians know that. And people like me that have partial Mexican ancestry, we know that too. And I think on that basis, we can have mutual respect and understanding, not aversion based on skin color.
The reason I use the word aversion is you literally said that you should walk the other way if you see black people. That is an aversion to black people based on their skin color.
No, that's called economy of information. That's economy of information. That's safety. And I said in the same monologue, if you watch it, it's like, I feel sorry. The problem is you clip the 10 seconds. I don't know if you watched the whole show, but in that monologue, I said, most black people are not violent or criminals. I said, and it's unfortunate that we're going to offend them when we turn and walk the other way. I said, but the problem is we don't know. We can't tell. And someone like Irina Zarutska, she sat down in front of a black man with her headphones in and wasn't paying attention because she was being a good liberal and said, I'm not uncomfortable by this. I'm progressive. Then she got stabbed in the neck. And I said, it's unfortunate that you would have to sit behind the black man to be safe. And if he's not violent or schizophrenic, he might be offended by that. I said, but I would rather offend him than die.
How many deranged white men have committed atrocious acts of murder in the last 10 years in America?
Proportionally, far fewer.
But how many?
Fewer.
How many? Do you know how many?
You have a research team. You pull it up.
I mean, you're very big on. You're obviously extremely exercised by that one story, which was horrific, for the record. Absolutely horrific.
He's free, by the way, the guy that stabbed Irina Zarutska.
Who perpetrated that evil act had a string of previous offences and should have been picked up more, and it should have been amplified more. I completely concur with all of that. But I just suspect you have no idea how many white people have committed similar crimes, do you?
No, because I know it's far fewer from experience. Because it's like you said. Well, and hang on, and I would add to that, you know, Irina Zarutska wasn't the first one. That was also after Austin Metcalf was killed in Texas.
Sure.
After Carmelo
how many
Anthony
times has it
stabbed
been
him in the
perpetrated
neck.
by white people?
Very true. And I
Well, hang on. Let me finish my point.
But you're
And then
implying
not
that
only
white
did-
people don't do this. And my point to you, Nick Fuentes, is of
Yeah.
course,
Oh, I never said white people don't do it.
Of course, deranged white people commit heinous acts. But you don't either know.
No disagreement.
You neither know nor care, or maybe both. Maybe you do know but don't care. You only seem to be focused on black people who commit crimes. And again, if you hadn't prefaced the whole debate about racism by openly conceding you are a racist,
not guilty,
I could read other connotations into what you've been saying. But once you've said, I'm a racist, and then you only talk about black crime, I think people can watch this and they can say, yeah, he's a racist. And everything that he says about crime is driven through the prism of being a racist who judges people according to their skin color.
Well, it's funny because it's quite on the contrary. And I said this in a similar monologue. You know, the problem is not that I wake up and I walk down the street and I see someone that doesn't look like me and it makes me angry. The problem is there's a pattern of behavior, which we've all seen. Blacks in America have become narcissistic, and they become narcissistic.
And just because I love to be open and upfront about things, at least according to two AI search engines, so hold your breath on that one. No, DeCarlos Brown Jr. is not currently free. He's currently in custody. So apologies on that. It appears, I know I had heard that from somewhere. The case led. Oh. Well, at least according to these two sources, it's not true. So my apologies.
Because they've been told they're victims of racism, they're victims of slavery. They've been told, really, there's no accountability. If they're rude, if they're inconsiderate, if they're criminal, they are told that they have no agency for their actions. They're being told, if you act in this way, it's because the white man made you that way. It's because the system's rigged against you. And so we have been telling black people this for a generation, and now there's no rules. Now they go, and what we hate to see as decent people, not even as white people, but decent people, even black people too, what we hate to see is rudeness, obnoxiousness, inconsideration, criminality, violence. And that's that pattern of behavior that we see all over social media on
so
the
just to
body
be clear,
cam footage,
you don't like black people who play the victim and are rude. Is that your position?
I don't like that pattern of behavior.
And who are narcissists.
I see where this is going.
Yeah, you're
Are you
ahead
going
of
to
me.
turn this around on me?
You're ahead of me, aren't you? Because when I said,
Very clever.
what black friends have you got? You said,
I am kind of black,
yay.
aren't I?
No, not that. You said,
Oh, yay
I'm not
also.
saying you. I'm just saying your choice of black friend is Ye, who is arguably the #1 black victimhood narcissist in America.
Let's take a little side note here. So apparently people are comparing Kyle Rittenhouse, because Kyle Rittenhouse has recently bowed back into the spotlight. They're comparing him to Luigi or Tyler. Let's see what this
Kyle Rittenhouse is back on social media. He came out, he dropped wedding pictures of him and his lovely bride Bella, and a lot of liberals are super pissed off about this. They're trying to compare him with Luigi Mangione and Tyler Robinson. All three of these people attacked Kyle Rittenhouse. One of them was a convicted pedophile. Another one of them was convicted of domestic violence. And this person was just like a dangerous, violent criminal. They attacked him. Kyle used his Second Amendment rights to defend himself. He was better at it. He won. They took the forever sleep. And then he was acquitted through self-defense in a court of law. Shooting an unsuspecting person in the back or in the neck is not the same thing.
Yeah.
Y'all feel me on that or not? Let me know down in the comments.
No, I definitely agree with that sentiment. Look, as someone who followed the Kyle Rittenhouse thing very, very closely, shooting someone only as your ultimate last resort, as opposed to shooting, like sneaking up and shooting someone and shooting them in the back of the head or shooting them in the neck from a roof, it's not even in the same ballpark. Okay, Kyle Rittenhouse, you can argue till you're blue in the face on either side of whether or not you think he even should have been there. The crossing state lines thing is bullshit. As someone who lives in the biggest city within 2 or 3 hours, right on a state line, I'm not going to say what 2 states, but I'm not even from that big of a town. That's just how small it is in the South, in some places that aren't Texas. But Kenosha, Wisconsin is right on the border. Kyle Rittenhouse's father, I think, lived about 20 minutes out, and his mom lived in town. It might have been reversed, but... and this is something I've researched a lot, and I'll even look it up right now, but it's not the same thing. The people he shot, the first one, okay, was in his face all night saying, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill you, yeah, I'm going to kill you. And then he said the N-word a lot, so I'm surprised, people are on his side at all on that. Of course they are, because he's on the left side. But that guy chased him, grabbed the end of his rifle, and started, trying to swing on him. So Kyle, seeing someone grabbed his gun, shot him and killed him. The next one came a little bit later as he was being mobbed, as he's running toward the police, mind you, and he's being hit with things. People are running up, punch him in the back of the head. He got hit with a skateboard in the back, I think, but he had his backpack on, but he fell to the ground. The kid who had a gun started pulling up his gun, and this is the part how he got off. He pulled his gun up to facing the guy. The guy put his gun down, and Kyle didn't shoot him then. Then someone else hit him over the head with the skateboard, or ran up about to hit him in the face with the skateboard. Shot him once, maybe twice, and then the kid with the gun pulled his gun back up. Kyle Rittenhouse saw this, and I don't know if he meant to do this or not, but he shot him in the forearm before he could get his gun fired. That's unreal. But I watched this video several times. It's very clear to anyone who isn't heavily partisan what really happened here. Every person that got shot was attacking Kyle Rittenhouse. If you attack someone who has a gun, very clearly presented, has a gun, and you know they have a gun, and you attack them physically, your life is forfeit. I'm sorry. You're an idiot, and we're probably all better off. Look, I'm all for saying that people don't deserve to die. Sure, but if you're stupid enough to attack someone who has a weapon, especially a gun, especially a rifle, I'm sorry. You get no sympathy from this guy. Let's continue.
Okay. Do you understand the problem? So he's your friend. He's one of the very few black people you want to be associated with, but he's the epitome of what you just said you abhor about narcissistic black people.
I disagree. I disagree with you, and I'll tell you why. Because Ye, if you've ever met him in real life...
I have, yeah.
Okay, well, then you know. He's nothing but polite, considerate.
Actually, he was very rude to me the last 2 times I interviewed him.
He's
a supreme narcissist. And he's also...
you keep interrupting me. You're very rude. Are you black? Because you're being very rude by interrupting me right now.
To you.
I'm giving you a hard time, but I
okay.
do want to finish my point. I do want to finish my point about Ye. He is a guy who, when I was with him, wanted to make sure that everybody was heard. Everybody felt included. He's actually a very soft-spoken guy, very polite, and by the way, not violent. When you look at all the rappers that are in the music game, many of them, especially from Chicago, drill rap, they're talking about killing people, shooting people, they gangbang. He notably, if you know about him, he got his start because he was a nerd. He wore a backpack and a polo, and he wasn't a gangbanger. He rapped about his feelings and girls and his dreams and his ambitions.
Very true.
So, no, and by the way, he would tell me all the time, he doesn't even feel black. They make him feel not black because he doesn't do those things, because he's soft-spoken, because he's artistic, because he's a bit of a nerd or likes fashion. So I would disagree. He's actually not like that at all.
Okay.
We're talking
he's also a Hitler-loving anti-Semite. And we're going to take a little commercial break here, and we're going to come back and talk about anti-Semitism and your views about Jewish people, and indeed what Ye has said about the same subject matter. Angel Studios are back with a new must-see documentary.
Any Jews.
Okay, let's play this clip.
The reason I added is because my opposition to world Jewry and Israel is rooted in absolute, uncontestable fact.
Jewry is something that kind of shocked me, and then he says something he's about to say. I saw this clip too, and I looked it up, and it turns out to be true, so... Still makes me feel a certain kind of way, but...
We have the truth on our side. That's why we're winning. Because we are telling the truth about the historical antagonism between Jews and Europeans, between Jews and Christians. The theological, historical, racial, cultural, and political antagonisms between organized Jewry and the Christians, organized Jewry and Europeans. And the reason that we are winning that argument is because it's real, it's true. I can prove it, I can show you, I can name the names, I can show you the paper trail, the money.
I was going to say the word.
That is why we're winning. That is why all of this is raising the consciousness.
When you say you have this opposition to world Jewry, I mean, it's one thing to criticize, for example, the Israeli government over what it's been doing in Gaza. I've done that myself. When you talk about world Jewry, I presume you're talking about the 15 million Jews in the world, and you are opposed to them. How does that square with your position that you don't hate any Jews?
Well, do you take issue with my use of the term world Jewry?
Well, what do you mean by that?
Or do you take issue with it? Do you have a problem with that?
Clarify what you mean by it.
Well, it's funny you bring that up.
I will say that's smart on Piers Morgan's, on his parts, because either he knows what it means already and doesn't know if Nick Fuentes knows that, or he doesn't know what it means and he's afraid he'll put his fucking foot in his mouth again, and he doesn't want to do that. So smart move on Piers' point here.
The gaslighting's crazy because I use that expression on my show all the time. I say organized Jewry, world Jewry. And do you know that for like 30 years, the World Jewish Congress has an annual keynote called the State of World Jewry? Barry Weiss has given it. You can look it up. It's on YouTube. She gives the State of World Jewry address.
But Nick, what do you mean by it?
I mean, you have to talk about, there's a concept of Jewish peoplehood. It's the sense that they are part of a common nationality, a common tribe, a common people. And so where they reside in Israel, the United States, or Europe, or elsewhere, they see each other above or maybe on a different level alongside their nationality, their state, wherever they reside. If they're in Germany, France, the United States, they see themselves as part of a transnational nation, of an international nation. The Jews in America, the Jews in Israel, they identify as Israeli or American, but they also have something in common. They identify as part of a common nation, which I would say there's a world Jewish population. It's world Jewry. And world Jewry has representatives. There is such a thing as the World Jewish Congress, where they actually elect, it's democratic, all the local Jewish organizations elect representatives to represent.
I haven't looked this one up yet, but I am very curious. Oh, thank you, Mr. Evil Sizer. I appreciate the plaudits.
Proportionally, the Jewish population in their area at the World Jewish Congress. And it's sort of like Davos. It's like the World Economic Forum, but it's exclusively for members of the Jewish nation that exists across the world. And so that's a real thing. And I didn't make that up, and that didn't come from 4chan. It's like I said in that clip. I read
It definitely
what they
sounds
write.
like something that would come
I
from
read their
4chan.
books. I watch these speeches. I watch a speech from Barry Weiss. I pay very close attention. So that's what I mean by that. There is such a thing as it's a nation that exists across borders on a global scale. They're organized, and they have a national self-interest as that nation, as that tribe.
So if you don't hate any Jews, what do you like about them?
I like a lot of things about them. I think they're funny. I think they're smart. I think that they're pretty remarkable
Robka,
people.
thank you for the
as Christians, especially as Catholics, we say they're remarkable. And this has been adjudicated in Catholic doctrine for thousands of years. We say that they're a witness people. And so we actually, there's provisions inside of Catholic doctrine that says we need to give them special protections because they were a witness to Christ's passion. So, this is why you can't clip the show. You have to watch the whole thing. I say this repeatedly in interviews. I do think they're remarkable. By definition, they're exceptional people. It's just that there is a sort of natural opposition between them and Christians because of the theology. We believe that Christ is a Messiah.
A little bit.
They don't. They have been a minority in Christian lands for thousands of years, and they have been pushed around and expelled, and they've been persecuted and segregated. And that's why there's a lot of paranoia. There's a lot of distrust.
See, and this is what makes Nick Fuentes and people like him so dangerous. Honestly, it's just pretty much whatever interests me at the moment. Someone asked me what this channel is about. A little bit of politics, some gaming here and there. But for the most part, I find things that interest me. And honestly, on top of that, I love pointing out hypocrisy, and there are few better examples of hypocrisy than one Piers Morgan. Again, that is not to say that I am on Nick Fuentes' side of this argument. It is possible to be against both people because, as we've all seen in politics, each side has dipshit asshole retards. And again, not necessarily saying both of these are those. I don't know enough about Nick Fuentes to make that leap. I've only heard him spoke of. I've never watched his show. But I've seen enough of Piers Morgan to know that that's the perfect way to describe him. Whether you like his little tour of pretending to be more based or in the middle, more moderate, or not, like me, because just like with my disagreements with Candace Owens, I don't care what side of things you're on. I'm not liberal. Well, I'm not a leftist, and I'm not a conservative by any means, and I don't think I'll ever consider myself one. But yeah, the parties are full of retards, and their media base are full of retards. And I'm just here to point that out and to make sure that people see both sides, especially their hypocrisies, for the most part. No, nor I. Then you're right at home there, Robka.
There's maybe some sense of chauvinism among Jewish people. So there is, like I said in that clip, there is an historical antagonism between these two peoples, between Christendom and Jewry, and that has always been the case in Europe. But I don't hate them, and I think I actually sort of understand them in a weird way. I think that because I've studied a lot of their politics, I think I really kind of know them in a way, and it doesn't come from a place of hatred.
Do you have any Jewish friends?
I do. I have many, yes.
But that's weird because you said this.
See,
Jews and Christians have never...
And this is where Piers Morgan starts to spiral out of control. To be where like, oh, so you like black people? Well, that's weird because you hear this. Or, oh, you'd have some Jewish friends. Well, that's weird because you said this. People know that he's said these things. And it's like Piers Morgan is trying to get people who already know who he is and are friends with him anyway to not be friends with him. It's ridiculous. It's like most media these days. Most media does not talk to coax anyone to their side. Today's media only exists to grab its audience, put its little head on your shoulder, and pat its back until you fall asleep. To be very comforted in your own opinion and to be reassured that you're right and nothing that you think could ever be wrong because you agree with us. And that's both sides, yes. More egregious on one side right now, but for the most part, that's everything in politics at the moment.
Never been friends, ever. Not since Jesus Christ fought with the Pharisees. Have we ever been friends? Not since Saul was leading the charge persecuting the Christians. Not since the Roman Empire, not since the Middle Ages. Never. We've never been friends. We've never been allies. We've always been set against each other, actually. And even here in the United States, it was communist Jews who were the architects of both communism and the civil rights laws that are dispossessing white Christians of their land and civilization.
The Jews and Christians have never been friends ever, except for you and your Jewish friends.
Okay, this is weird. Sorry. Seeing a lot of "it's the fucking guns, it's the fucking guns." Was there another shooting? Another person saying the cities with the 10 highest murder rates are in red states. Yes, no, that's 100% true. Most of the and the funny thing is, look, okay, I'll bring this down. So most of these, this is a liberal city, that's a liberal city, that's a liberal city, that's a liberal city. Pretty much all of these lean heavily to the left. Let's just not mince words on that. These are big liberal cities in big conservative states. Just saying, that's a bit of a conflict. We lie to them, it's a felony. Yeah, no, exactly. It's disgusting how much if you lie to the government, well, you're a felon. But if the government lies to you, no, it's for your own good. It's getting very Animal Farmish. We're all equal, just some people are more equal than others.
Yeah, so easy. As peoples, as nations.
Got it.
Not saying every individual Christian, and of course there have been Christians and there have been Christian converts to Judaism, Jewish converts to Christian. You're nodding your head, but you're asking this. I'm saying as peoples, they've never been aligned.
As a Roman, I'm a Catholic like you, and I have many Jewish friends. I'm just trying to compute.
You're not a Catholic, Piers Morgan, and this is one thing that I hate. If you're religious and you hold true to that religion, and you don't let anyone sway you in your religious belief, nothing but the utmost respect. But if you're someone who holds Christianity, Islam, Judaism, or anything, or even those white people who talk about mindfulness like they've ever done any self-reflection whatsoever, you know the ones. I have no respect for you because you just use it as a cudgel or to bludgeon people over the head with your belief to make yourself feel supreme to them. I don't believe in any kind of supremacy. I believe in the true equality to where you're not a dick because you think you're better than people. You're only a dick if people are, dicks to you, which is a very odd crossing of swords, but we'll skip past that for the moment.
What you're trying to say, which is Jews and Christians have never been friends ever. And I'm like, well, you have Jewish friends. I have Jewish friends. We're both Catholic.
All that to say, just like Joe Biden, Piers Morgan claims to be Catholic, but is very much not Catholic. And thank you, Rocco.
Therefore, we're Christians. It doesn't really quite add up.
Well, like I said, as peoples, there has been an historical antagonism as peoples. And you could even say the same about blacks in the United States. Of course, there were black and white people that were friendly with each other, but in many ways, they were set against each other as groups. And I think that's easy enough to understand.
The reason that many people think you're anti-Semitic is that you have regularly downplayed the Holocaust, and in particular, the number of Jewish people who were murdered by the Nazis. It's been said that you believe no more than several 100,000 have been killed. And I want to play you this clip.
People talk about, well, what about the gas chambers? Well, to the extent that that's real, I find that hard to believe, but to the extent that's real, there have been atrocities committed and genocides committed in all times and all places. Let's acknowledge why Hitler casts the long shadow. Because that confers a political benefit upon Jews. That's why.
It doesn't really sound correct to me. Wait a second.
Wow,
Takes
look how
1 hour
far
to cook
he had
a
to go
batch
back
of
for this
cookies,
one.
And you have 15 ovens, probably in 4 different kitchens, right? Doing 24 hours a day, every day for 5 years. How long would it take you to make 6 million?
I love how they put his face still on there.
I don't know. It certainly wouldn't be 5 years, right? The math doesn't seem to add up there.
That was him very clearly being overly edgy and kind of hacky. He looked like one of those 1950s daytime TV show hosts saying something horribly cruel and kind of cringe, to be fair.
You think that's funny?
It's funny. It's amusing what you're doing because, that one was a joke. But do you want to talk seriously about the Holocaust?
I do, actually. I do, because I just find it extraordinary that you would think the Holocaust could ever be something that we could joke about.
Why not?
Why?
Like literally, why not? Look, I'm someone who's been told for his entire life that he looks a little Jewy, okay? I have some very stereotypical features that some associate with, being Jewish. Everything other than the nose. I have a very large head, egg-shaped even, if you will. I have curly hair when I actually grow my hair out. I'm funny. I'm good with money. Not mine, but I give good financial advice because I know what to do. I'm just very bad at it. And because of this, people have thought I was very Jewish for my entire life. Ever since most people who aren't Jewish know what that is, which is roughly about 16. So ever since I was 16, it's been an ongoing rumor. So I've been called Jew boy and this and that. And I have to say, and I'm going to tell a pretty fucked up joke, and hopefully I don't get canceled for it. But a lot of people were giving me a lot of crap. Jew boy, Jew boy, Jew boy. Oh, wow, blame the Jew. This, and this. And finally, someone I thought was coming to my aid said, hey guys, leave him alone, okay? I had a grandfather who died. who died at the Holocaust or something like that. And I was like, wow, thank you. And then right after I was thanking him for coming to my aid, he said he fell out of a tower while he was shooting, and I was so shocked. But it was funny, probably just because it was shocking. But it's you can talk about a lot of these things because most people, especially the Jewish peoples, use comedy as a way to deal with uncomfortable subjects and situations. If we can't learn to take the piss out of any solid situations, then you have to face these things at some point, but to get through them in the moment, you have to find little fucked up ways to get yourself through this. Otherwise, you'll just be a psychopath. This is one of the mostly... Oh, the Ukraine. What one recently or back during those days?
Too soon? Is it too soon to make jokes?
How many people do you think died in the Holocaust? How many Jewish people?
I don't know. I'm thinking maybe 7 million. What's the number? 6 million, something like that.
So you
8 million?
You concede that 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust?
Possibly more. Possibly, we're discovering all the time. So it could maybe even be more than that.
So why have you doubted the numbers in the past?
Because he was young and asking questions.
I really think that every death is a tragedy, however many Jewish people died in the Holocaust. And I'm not a World War II historian, so I'm actually open to believing the official narrative, and I've read some of the conspiracy theories. And to tell you the truth, it's a rigorous debate. But what's interesting about this is in many countries, it's not even legal to talk about it. And that's really where my interest in the Holocaust begins and sort of ends.
And I completely agree with him there. I'll let him continue a little bit and then I'll give my piece.
To tell you the truth is that if you wanted to question the number, you would be put in jail in about, 17 or 18 European countries. And I think that's really the more interesting conversation, which is that this is almost like a religious dogma in the West. No other genocide, no other atrocity is treated like this. Could you imagine if in the United States they said the number of Palestinians killed in Gaza is 100,000, and if you don't say that, you're going to jail, you're banned on X, you can't have a job? That's the part that's totally insane. And a lot of people, they can't even make up their minds. I think it's actually done a disservice. If your goal, and I'm not saying you as Piers Morgan, but if your goal, if you're an advocate for awareness about this, if your goal is to convince everybody that this is the way the Holocaust happened, I think the last thing you'd want to do is say that everyone that disagrees is in jail and is banned and you're not allowed to say it. So there's really been no open debate about the subject since the scholarship started to be produced about 60 years ago.
But there is no debate to be had about the number of people who were murdered.
There's always debate to be had. Look, just because I'll never understand that. It's okay for people to question things, even if those things have already been conclusively, figured out or whatever. Like, the same thing with round earth, flat earth. I don't care which one of these you are. Mostly just because I love arguing with flat earthers, and even more so with hollow earthers. I've only ever met one person who legitimately believed in hollow earth, but I've met a few flat earthers. And at least one of them, maybe two of them, are fairly intelligent. They've definitely got a better degree than me. Not to say that a degree means that you're intelligent, but they're definitely doing a lot better in life than I myself am. But it's completely okay for anyone to believe anything, just as long as they don't get pissed off when you blatantly prove them to be wrong. Yeah, flat Earth's, it's, look, I know it seems laughable. I love how much they believe in it. I also love how their argument crumbles when you mention hemispheres, or just the rotations and the way the sun and the earth, or the sun and the moon, exist in relation to the earth. You know what I'm saying? Did I say that right? The sun and the moon in relationship to the earth. Anyway, that's a topic for another day. I do plan on doing a Saturday or Sunday special about flat earth, but...
Even the Nazis in the trials after the war confirmed the numbers. The amount of documentation that was recovered, notwithstanding the attempts by the Nazis to destroy it, the amount of documentation that was saved and preserved and used for trials and for historical record is unprecedented in the history of mass slaughter of human beings. So we have a very clear idea.
Nick Fuentes looks like a giant baby. I'm sorry. I know he's around 30 now, but he looks like a giant little boy. He looks like, you remember the guy from the episode of House who was very, very intelligent, and people thought that he had a disease that made him an asshole, and it turned out he was just an asshole. That's who Nick Fuentes reminds me of.
Yeah, of how many people were gassed to death in the gas chambers. We have a very clear idea of how many were starved to death, were kept in ghettos, died of disease, of forced labor, of death marches. We know how many Jews were slaughtered. It's at least 6 million. What's interesting to me is that you appear to now concede that.
Which isn't going to turn me into some like drooling vegetable who wets his pants, is it?
Like here, tell me that this kid does not remind you of Nick
nerve
Fuentes.
cells, which will hopefully squelch the head pain.
Is there anything you can do about the other pain?
From fights?
Yeah, I mean my face, my shoulder, my stomach. I mean, I can barely bend my fingers.
You're already on pain meds. Nothing more I can do.
Sure you can, man. Tell your homies to quit stomping on me.
I'll get the word out that you're a great guy.
So, do people watch what they say around you?
Because I'm black.
No, because you're gay.
Like, tell me that they don't sound alike.
Maybe news to a lot of your regular viewers who have constantly heard you quibble with the number of Jews who died in the Holocaust. And for the record, just to confirm what I think you told me, you do now accept that at least 6 million Jews were killed in the Holocaust.
Well, no, I said it could even be higher than that.
Well, it could be higher.
Like, sorry, just one more little side.
Cluster headaches can persist. He's jaundiced. His liver's shutting down.
Why don't you take her for a ride? Get yourself coited.
I'm gonna give him a sedative.
And Nick seems like he was
Decent-looking Dr. Skippy.
like they look very much like. Anyway, I'm gonna move on. Sorry. It's the ADHD. I apologize.
That is
I
true.
think it's at least.
But you
I think you're
accept
right.
at least.
It is at least. Oh, it's at least 6 million. But it could be 100
well,
times
people
more
are
than
gonna
that.
be, okay, the people are going to be...
Let me respond to the rest of your question.
Sure.
What you're saying, I understand where you're coming from when you say it has been documented and there are confessions and so on. Let that speak for itself. But you don't see, your show is called Piers Morgan Uncensored.
Yep.
But the United Kingdom is censored and Europe is censored. And if you talk about these things, you will be put in jail in many countries.
Yes.
And I think that's where a lot of people start to say, well, if the truth is so clear and if there's such overwhelming evidence, why do you need to throw people in jail for disagreeing? And you yourself said, well, there is no debate. I think everything is debatable. I think everything at least should be debated. And if the evidence is very one-sided, let the evidence speak. Don't throw people in jail. So do you think that Holocaust denial laws should be overturned?
I don't particularly agree with Holocaust denial laws. I don't think people should be imprisoned.
Okay.
Well, because I have a blanket view now, which has evolved slightly actually over the years, that I have a blanket view that speech should not be criminalized, right? People should be allowed to say what they want to say, and they should be then made accountable for what they say. If you have an employer, they can make a view about whether you are the right kind of person they want for their employment, as they would make a decision about anything else you do in life. So I actually believe that speech should never be criminalized, is my personal view. I understand why in places like Germany, they have strong laws about it because they want to move on from what they believe was the most shameful moment in their history. I understand that. Do I want that in my country? No. Am I appalled by what has been going on with free speech in the United Kingdom in the last 2 or 3 years? Absolutely. It is ridiculous that people have been frog marched to prison cells for stuff they put on social media, right? So, yeah, I do. I think what is more interesting to me about our exchange is I was not expecting you to go the opposite way. I was not expecting you to be so emphatic that at least 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust. And there'll be people watching this who I think will be very surprised by that, because you have built a reputation for being, if not a Holocaust denier, then somebody constantly questioning in a downward way the number of Jews who were murdered. That doesn't appear to be what your position is now.
No, and here's what I would like to see for my entire career. when I started my show, it started with a good faith inquiry where I was questioning a lot of these narratives. And I said, what is the answer on the other side? But what I found is that the answer was criminalized. So when you would talk about anything regarding Jews, Israel, the Holocaust, you could be in favor of the official narrative on those things. If you went against, you were banned, censored, and in some countries jailed. And so I actually haven't.
And depending on the premise as to said belief, and that's a very high bar, trust me. I don't think any speech should be censored. Now, if you're using it as a message of hate, specifically, I don't even know. Like, honestly, I still think I'm pretty open about it because I can't even think of any examples that I would give. But no, people should be able to discuss these things, just as people can point out that they may feel it's disgusting to discuss such things. But just because you're offended doesn't make you right. I mean, you could very well be right, but it's not because you're offended. It's because just the facts just happen to be on your side for that particular instance.
Made up my mind on that because that's not really a matter of interest to me. And there's a lot of analysis and scholarship on both sides of the issue. And I've read both sides of the issue. And honestly, unfortunately, it's hard to judge because there has never been a debate on it. And there's never been a debate because of the stigma, because of the censorship. And I think that leads a lot of people to say, well, what do they have to hide? Because you can say on your show, well, I'm personally against Holocaust denial laws, yet they still persist and the social consequences still persist. And I think that is the anomaly. And people have to wonder, okay, why is it that way? And what I said in that clip is the reason the Holocaust casts a long shadow is because it confers a political benefit upon organized Jewry. That is what they always fall back on. They cannot be criticized. They cannot be named. They cannot be talked about lest there be another Holocaust. And no other tragedy is treated that way. And no other ethnic group has a get out of jail free card. Just play that. Anti-Semitism and Holocaust. You can do whatever you want and defend all your actions. That's the part that people are getting upset with. That's the problem.
I don't know any right-minded person who believes that Jewish people weaponize.
I'm sorry. It feels like the kid from House versus the old bird lady from Home Alone 2. This is kind of freaky for me.
It's the Holocaust for their own personal get out of jail free or whatever you called it.
You don't know anyone that does that? That believes that?
I'm sure there are some people that do that, but it's such a ridiculous generalization. You know, the truth is that most Jewish people have lost relatives in the Holocaust. In fact, I want to play you two clips. One is where you talk about Adolf Hitler.
Hitler was a pedophile and kind of a pagan. It's like, well, he was also really fucking cool. So, you know, time to grow up. We're not children anymore. Am I right? Am I right? Am I right, boys? Am I right?
This feels like
Let's
a really
go.
old clip too.
He was also really fucking cool.
Do you regret saying that?
Saying a fact? No, that's absolutely true.
You think?
You know what's extra fun? I knew some kids like this when I was in school, junior high and high school. A few of them were in the trench coat mafia in my local school, and a fewer, actually, most of them are hard left-wingers now. Yeah, pretty much all of them are left-wing now, which is kind of weird.
Hitler was very fucking cool.
Very anecdotal, but true nonetheless.
Yes, I do.
One of them,
and I'm tired of pretending he's not.
Well,
to be honest,
this is the problem. You see, it's a bit like when you just say, "I'm a racist." You're a racist who thinks Hitler's cool, but you're not anti-Semitic. If you're a Jewish person watching this, what are they thinking? I'll tell you what they're thinking, because I've got a friend of mine
They're
called
thinking
Danny
Piers Morgan looks like the bird lady from Home Alone 2.
When he heard I was interviewing you, he's a Times journalist in the UK, very eminent journalist here, and author, who wrote a book about his own family's experiences at the hands of Hitler and Stalin, because you also told Tucker Carlson that you admire Stalin. But let's just take what Danny said here.
Hi Piers, it's Danny Finkelstein here. As you're interviewing Nick Fuentes, you might try suggesting to him that he reads my book, Hitler, Stalin, Mum and Dad. It's called Two Roads Home in the United States. since he says he's on Team Hitler, you might like to ask him about the fact that Hitler arrested my mum, tried to starve my mum to death, did starve my grandmother to death, sent my great aunt to the gas chamber, my great uncle, my cousin. My grandmother on my father's side ended up being...
And this is exactly what he was wanting to do in that Ben Shapiro interview that we showed at the very top of the show. Trotting, like basically just standing on the graves of this guy's poor family, which is something that he's doing too. It's a very sad story. It's a horrible story, and it shouldn't have happened. But at the same time, trotting all these people out are not going to get him to change his mind. He's openly saying that he's a racist, and maybe not an anti-Semite, but he's saying that he's a Nazi, or at least someone who's very fond of Hitler. I mean, what is it you're trying to accomplish here, other than grandstanding in front of your audience?
1 out of 7 children, the only one that survived the war. So you might ask him whether he wouldn't rather be on Team Mum rather than Team Hitler.
And why does it have to be a team between Stalin and Hitler? I will say that the Soviets killed way more people. Of course, it was over a longer period of time. But at the same time, why does it have to be one or the other? Why can't they both be bad, and we need to find something in the middle, toward the center, that's just better, categorically?
As for celebrating Stalin's birthday, well, Stalin took my father, sent him to a state collective farm, sent my grandmother and to a state collective farm, sent my grandfather to the Gulag. You might try asking him why he doesn't celebrate Dad's birthday rather than Stalin's. It may all be a big joke to him, but he complains that he was 18 when someone tried to cancel him. Well, Stalin and Hitler arrested my mum and my dad when they were 10 years old. So perhaps he might like to reconsider his joke.
Again, all this over a joke. You can think the joke's not funny, and by all means, it wasn't. It wasn't really funny. Like, not at all. But what is funny is how all these people are coming with their sad stories, and he's not going to give a shit. I've seen this clip too. Who are you trying to convince in this? You want him to feel bad, but he doesn't. So if you want him to change his mind, or if you want the audience to change his mind, their minds, this is not the way to go about it, okay? Making sure everyone knows he's a very, very, very bad boy is not the way to go about this. It's just kind of sad, and this probably did more for Nick Fuentes than it did for anything anti-Nick Fuentes, if I'm being completely honest.
See, that's the reality of your jokes, although I haven't ascertained yet whether you are joking when you say that Hitler was very fucking cool. Are you joking, or do you actually think he was very fucking cool?
I will say I love hearing people with different accents cussing, except for Piers Morgan. I don't know why. I would like to hear him say bastard. Oh, bastard, but I don't know.
The most genocidal monster of the last 150 years.
Yeah, the thing is, my generation, we're just done with the pearl clutching.
Yeah, you might be, but then your generation hasn't gone through what Danny Finkelstein's family went through. So maybe the pearl clutching has a way to go for families whose family members
oh my
were
gosh,
murdered.
yeah, we got all that. We, me mom, like we're. I don't even know who this person is. Why is this person talking to me? This old British guy is saying me mom got killed by Hitler.
Because he doesn't find it funny when you say Hitler's very fucking cool.
I don't care. I don't care.
I know you don't care. That's fine. You don't have to care. But he does care.
Does that guy care about America? Does that guy care about me and my country and my family? No.
He cares what you, a prominent conservative in America, has to say about Adolf Hitler. And what do you mean by Hitler is very fucking cool? Because I think he's very fucking a monster.
And the reason that a lot of these young people, kids especially, and what I got from, I had a few friends who had the Anarchist Cookbook, who were very much trenchcoat mafia-y, and who celebrated 420 unironically and sometimes ironically, everything that they had in common was they did it because it pissed people off. Again, look, I'm not saying that you shouldn't host Nick Fuentes, but by coming at it from this angle, you're only going to explode his following. Yeah, no, exactly. And you can't, look, I agree with that point. For those of you who aren't on Kick, they said it's like we are guilty on what happened years ago, but what happened years ago, we shouldn't be ashamed on what happened years ago, which is kind of a fun way to put it. But no, I get what you're saying. Like, we shouldn't, like, it's horrible, and we should all ignore it, or acknowledge that it was horrible. Ignore, Jesus. That it's horrible, but at the same time, we didn't do that. And like I said, the reason that Nick Fuentes and a lot of people who do stuff like this is literally just to piss people off. Which is why most of my friends who are staunch, hard leftist, not liberal, but leftist activists now, for the same reason. They love pissing off the pearl clutchers. But at the same time, if you don't notice, by trying to piss off conservatives who clutch their pearls to everything you believed in when you were young, you're kind of just a pearl clutcher yourself, and it all becomes a Karen on Karen like event that you would only see on pay-per-view.
Okay. That's a clip. I think he's very fucking a monster. Do you hear yourself?
Yeah, I
mean,
do.
can we all grow up?
I do.
Can we all grow
He
up?
murdered
That
12
is just
million
childish.
people. He murdered 12 million people. What is very fucking cool about that? Tell me.
And Stalin,
the edits,
mommy,
it's just cool. The uniforms, the parades, it's cool as a guy. You look at World War II, and it's fascinating, and it's interesting, and it's compelling, and it's cool. And we're just tired of saying these kinds of things. We want to talk like real people and give our honest opinions, and then we literally get an old Jewish guy from England who's going to say, "Oh, that's not very funny, mate. Me mom," and it's like, shut up, like. No one is in favor of genocide. So let's just get that out of the way. We're not in favor of a Holocaust or genocide.
Do you think if half your family
80 years ago?
Sorry, Jasmine Crockett just came out with the dumbest statement. Jasmine Crockett. We need illegal migrants in America because we done picking cotton. The fuck? It's one thing when white liberals admit that they're just a new indentured or slave class. It's another on this, man. Jesus, you can't make this shit up. This is why people like Nux Taku very much, and myself, support Operation Let Them Speak.
If half your family had been wiped out by very fucking cool Hitler, you'd still think he was very fucking cool? Or would you think that actually he was a despicable monster who murdered 12 million people, who targeted people because they were disabled or Jewish or Romani Gypsy or whatever it may be, and that he systematically destroyed people, incinerated them in gas chambers? Do you think that you would find it very fucking cool if your family had been through that? Or do you think you would find it very fucking disgusting? And perhaps moderate the number of times you laugh about it, or want to joke about it, or want to abuse someone like Danny Finkelstein, who's written incredibly powerful books about what happened to his extended family at the hands of the Nazis and your other hero, Stalin. See, my point to you, Nick Fuentes, is that in parts of this interview, you try to come across as moderate, but every now and again, the mask slips. And it slipped again here with what you say about Hitler.
Mask when it
There's
comes
nothing
to
very
this guy.
fucking cool about Hitler. We know that from history now. We know what he did. You've already conceded that he murdered at least 6 million Jews. So when you say he's very fucking cool, Jewish people watch this and go, this guy's disgusting. Why would he say this about someone who perpetrated such an evil? And what's the real answer? Why do you? Is it just for clicks? Is it for money? Is it just for fun? For shits and giggles? What is it? What motivates you to say something like Hitler was very fucking cool?
It's for this. It's for all of this. And the lack of self-awareness is amazing. You're a boomer. You're a 60-year-old boomer. And we've spent maybe 3 minutes on you saying, he's a really fucking monster. He incinerated people. And I'm sitting here saying it's not that serious. It's not that deep. And
not that
what
serious.
I'm getting at.
Not that serious.
Do you want to say more about he's a monster?
You're not a kid yourself anymore. You're not a teenager.
I know.
Right? You're nearly 30, to be clear.
Yeah,
okay? You're a fully formed adult who has a brain, right? And at some stage, that brain is taking you off these rabbit warrens.
Is this an interview or is this a lecture? Can I respond to what you're saying?
I want you to explain why you think it's fine to say how fucking cool Hitler is and to dismiss the very powerful 90 seconds from a British journalist who'd lost a lot of family members to the Nazis in such a callous, dismissive manner.
I don't think it's powerful. I think we've been hearing that our entire lives, okay? The Schindler's List. Let's just be honest. The propaganda is over the top. We have been in America.
What about the Schindler's List? Tell me about the Schindler's List. Well, tell me about the Schindler's List.
I'll tell you about it. We have been browbeaten as a people, as Americans, as Westerners, for our entire lives. And do you know what this has done? It has taken away any sense of pride, any sense of love for our own civilization. We have been made the villain in our own story. We have been made because, well, let's just be clear. It doesn't begin and end with Hitler is a monster. This has been the political narrative, which is why we have thrown open the borders. This is a political narrative, which is why we can't be a conservative society as a whole anymore, why we can't be proud of Europeans, why we can't be proud of being Christian, because they've told us if you're too white and too proud and too Christian, it's going to lead to a Holocaust. And so my generation, our entire lives.
Honestly, Nick
it's true. And that's why people like me. That's why I'm popular, because this is bullshit.
Honestly.
Yeah, it's a crock. We don't want to hear any more about me mom and me dad. That's a crock of shit.
No, listen. What you just said is a crock of shit. And you
know
it.
It's true. It's called the open society.
In your gut, you know it is. You weaponize this stuff. You weaponize this stuff for money, but you know when you say something like what you just said.
I'm banned from banking.
You know.
Look, and that's another thing. This is the absolute. Look, do your research, especially if you speak out against someone or at the very least interview them. Do your research. As Nick Fuentes is about to say, he's been banned from everything for saying stuff like this. I very much believe, look, I got no great love for the man. But you got to admit, he believes what he says, okay? And he does not do this for the money. You can very much tell that he doesn't. You can tell Piers does. And you can tell I don't, because I'm not making any money yet. Wink.
From banking and credit cards. You know who you're talking to?
Yeah,
I do it for money.
And by the way,
how much money you make? Your company's worth $100 million. Your company's worth $100 million. I was banned from Bank of America.
And you shouldn't
I'm banned from processing credit cards.
And you shouldn't have been.
But I am. So don't tell me I'm doing it for money.
Well, ask me my opinion about that. I'll tell you shouldn't have been. Right? I don't agree with that. What happened to you?
Then don't say.
But he was. That's the thing.
I'm doing it for money, because you know that full well, and you say it's a grift.
How much money
if I wanted to be a grifter, I'd be like you, and I would go and say,
how much money are you making?
I'm making a lot of money now.
Yeah.
Now that I'm the #1 live streamer in America, because people agree with me more than they agree with you. We're tired of hearing about slavery and the Holocaust and Jim Crow. We're done hearing about that. You guys overplayed your hand.
I'm not done hearing about that.
Okay, well, you know, your generation's on the way out, and Generation Z is coming up, and we're finished with that. Ready?
He straight up just pretty much said, well, you're about to die. So we're going to go with what I'm saying. That's,
to take our country back.
I've got 3
we're
sons.
not listening
I've
to
got 3
minorities
sons.
anymore.
I've got 3 sons, and they don't share your views about slavery and about the Holocaust. They can have decency and compassion.
Are you sure they're yours, Piers? Because from what I see of you and what I've heard, you like to watch.
And humanity about some of the worst things that have happened in the last 150 years or more. They can do that, and they can also have concerned views about issues like immigration and other issues. The two things are not mutually incompatible. You can have different views about different things. It's your lack of humanity and compassion for people about things like the Holocaust, about slavery. It's that people find so contemptible. And I don't understand why you need to do that. Is it, again, I just ask you, is your motivation financial? Is your motivation for fun? What is the motivation to saying these outlandish things, which you don't need to say, and which I suspect, I don't know, I suspect a lot of it is performative. So what is the motivation?
I'm an iconoclast. The Holocaust is not my religion, and it is treated like a religion. It is treated like a religion with dogma, with blasphemy laws, and that secular religion says, and you say that's a crock of shit. It's intentional. It's called The Open Society by Karl Popper. It's by these architects of the liberal order after World War II. They got together and they said, how can we make sure that Hitler never happens? How can we make sure that totalitarianism never happens again? And they came up with the consensus, which is that we need to take down nations, religions, fathers, the authoritarian personality. We need to be empathetic and altruistic. We need to be diverse and pluralistic. And that experiment isn't working. And I'll tell you the truth. Right now, and you can laugh at this, you can scoff at this, our people are being genocided in our country. 50% of the live births in the United Kingdom and in the United States are non-white. In 100 years, my ancestors, your kids who are so empathetic and compassionate, they're going to be a minority. They're going to be a minority in maybe a Muslim country, an Indian country, an Hispanic country. And these Jewish people that are 100 years old talking about my grandparents and the Holocaust, they don't care about that. Actually, they like to see it. At the SPLC, they're literally counting down the days until whites are a minority in America. So forgive me if I don't believe them when they talk about compassion. There's a genocide going on right now. It's not against the Jews.
How many Christians are there?
In Gaza, it's against whites.
How many Christians are there in the world? Like me.
1 point some billion. Yeah, 2 billion.
How many Jews are there?
15 million.
Okay. So with a straight face, you're going to tell me the world is being overrun by the Jewry, by 15 million people, when there are over 1 billion Christians. There is a genocide of Christians like poor old Nick Fuentes going on at the hands...
There actually is.
...of these 15 million Jews.
Not at the hands of Jewish people, but if you look, as has been mentioned on some news sources of late, yeah, there is a Christian genocide going on, mostly in Africa.
Really?
See, this attitude is why you're losing. When you say
who am I losing to?
White people,
who am I losing to?
White people.
Who am I losing to?
You're seeing it. Mass migration. Oh, you're losing to me. We are losing as a civilization of mass migration. And here's the difference. In Israel, they have my politics. In Israel, they want to maintain a Jewish majority. If they had it their way, it would only be Jewish people. They're fighting like hell so that Jewish people can have as much territory, a Jewish state. They can be proudly Jewish in their own land. Whereas in America, we are being besieged by 10 million illegal immigrants in 4 years. And then whites and Christians are going to be the minority. And that's true in Canada, Australia, all the countries in Europe. So you could say there's 2 billion people, but what's the proportionality? What is the percentage of people being born that are white? Where's the arrow pointing? Where are we going to be in 50 years? In 50 years, there might be in Israel. In 50 years, there isn't going to be a white Christendom.
You don't believe people should get married, right?
I think people should get married. I'm a Christian.
But you're basically anti-marriage, really. You've talked about this. You've talked about...
Are we done talking about white genocide?
Well, no, I'm coming to the same part because you seem very resistant to the idea of marriage. You've never got married. You've talked very scathingly about henpecked husbands. Just take a look.
That's true.
Guys get to a certain age and they're like, you know what? Women suck. Like, they're talking too much. They're not hot anymore. Like, you're fat, you're chubby, you're not as hot as you think you are. You fucking talk too much, you're a bitch.
So we'll obviously get to the brazen misogyny part of that a little later. But I'm just curious. On the one hand, there's this terrible genocide going on of white people. On the other hand, you want people effectively to stop going near women because they all turn out to be so ghastly. So they shouldn't presumably procreate. So,
yeah, which is crazy. Like, look, okay. I'll say this: if it's an inconvenience to the public, and what I mean by that is if it's basically a gathering that obstructs the flow of whether it be traffic, whether foot traffic, wheeled traffic, or if it's out loud over a loudspeaker, maybe, depending on the situation. Other than those specific instances, there's nothing wrong with praying. Some people, and I've seen a couple of Christians arrested for this, used praying in front of places like an abortion clinic, so on and so forth, as their form of protest. Now, whether it's because it's what they wanted to do, or they did it because they wanted to piss people off, because they know that seeing someone being Christian just pisses some people off. Who knows? I don't care. But yeah, keeping people from praying, it's like COVID when they let you go to Walmart or whatever, but they forbade you from going to church. It's kind of ridiculous. But on the other end of things, you've only ensured that Christianity has modernized, which means a lot of podcast Christians who believe way worse things than the more mainstream Christians that you previously didn't like are doing. So bravo to you. You've made extremists against you.
How does that work? I mean, aren't you, with your rhetoric, actively encouraging men not to associate with these ghastly women, therefore not have any more children? Therefore, you are contributing, Nick Fuentes, to the diminishing white population. I'm confused.
I tell my followers to get married all the time. I tell them that it's best for everybody to get married. And I think that's the only way that you can have sex. I think that's the only licit way as a Catholic, as you know, to have sex is within marriage.
Why don't you get married?
I'll get married later. It's been difficult for me because people are shooting at me at my house. I don't know that I don't want to have kids and a wife. You know, my wife would be screaming about that. Me, you know, I have to be able to take risks and be able to say these things. It's difficult to bring a family into a life that's like that. But for my followers, I tell them to get married. But what's happening with women...
And look at Piers. You can tell every time, and I'll rewind just a little bit. You can tell every time it looks like Nick Fuentes is about to stop talking, he's about to throw out something that he's literally just waiting for him to stop talking so he can say it.
Why don't you get married
sex
then?
Is within marriage.
Why don't you get married?
All right, now watch.
I'll get married later. It's been difficult for me because people are shooting at me at my house. I don't know that I don't want to have kids and a wife. You know, my wife would be screaming about that. Me, you know, I have to be able to take risks and be able to say these things. It's difficult to bring a family into a life that's like that. But for my followers, I tell them to get married. Okay. But what's happening with women...
You literally just told your followers... Well, hang on. In that clip, you literally told followers, women, they get old, they get fat, they get ugly, they get very annoying. So where's the incentive to get married to women? There isn't one. You're actively telling them the opposite.
You're extrapolating a lot. We can complain.
Just quoting you back yourself again.
No, but you're extrapolating and saying, well, you say women are annoying, so therefore, what's the incentive? We have to do it in spite of the fact that they are annoying. We have to do it in spite of the fact that they talk too much. We can get them to lose weight. We can put them on peptides.
Or you can find someone who is in common with you enough to start that family. Most people just kind of get to the age where they want to stop looking, and then they marry the best one they can find within arm's reach that they can attract themselves. That's men and women. And, you know, my hat's off to Nick on that particular instance. He recognizes that because of what he says, probably not the best idea to bring a wife and a family in on this. So that shows at least some maturity about him. I don't know about the rest of his views, but there's at least that.
We can get them to the promised land, but it's going to be
Do you think this view of women may be why none of them want to go near you?
You should see my DMs. It is quite the opposite. They're called the Groibettes, and I'm actually batting them away. Granted, not all of them are attractive. Some of them are attractive.
Are you actually? Look, just to clear up one of the many theories about you, I've no idea what the answer is, and you haven't got to answer. But are you actually attracted to women?
I am attracted to women.
That is something that's been going around, that people say that the reason he's like this is because he's actually gay. I don't think that's the case. I don't know. because, like he said, he's making a lot of money now. So the fact is that, I mean, he could pull some in. They won't probably be, the best, but it's not that he's unwanted per se, but probably by anyone who he would be into.
You're not gay?
No. But I will say that women are very difficult to be around.
Okay.
So there's that.
And do you think they should have the right to vote?
I do not. No, absolutely not.
They should stay at home?
Well, yeah, absolutely.
See, basically, you're just a misogynist old dinosaur, aren't you? For a young guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I'm the boomer. I know I'm the boomer here, but actually, you're a 27-year-old dinosaur, aren't you? Aren't you, Nick Fuentes? All women.
I am.
All women are annoying. All women are old. They all get fat. Says the guy. Have you ever had sex?
Have you ever had sex?
No, absolutely not.
Wow. Says the guy who's never got laid.
You virgin. You incel.
That's the thing, though. You boomers, it's
Do you think
always
you're an expert
get laid,
in women,
free love.
given you've never got laid?
Yeah, we are going back to the Stone Age. You're absolutely right. This, you're talking about empathy, and your kids are empathetic, and they would never laugh at a joke about the Holocaust, and you're a misogynist. You're a simp yourself. You're totally henpecked. That's the problem.
Which is true, and we can get into that later if we get a few more viewers by the end.
So
Let me play
to
another clip of yours about women.
A lot of women want to be raped, and when I say raped, I mean but also they have to pretend. But part of it is they have to pretend like they.
That's what the studies show, Piers. That is what these.
And that's mostly from the fantasy romance novel. It's called something else these days. And just remember back in the day when you wanted to find videos of such acts, you had to go behind a curtain. These days, the books are out in public, on the floor even. What's it? Minotaur Milking Farm or some such is the big seller this year.
Statistics
But that's what you believe,
they have
is it?
fantasies. They have fantasies about it. I don't think that they want to actually get raped, but there's a study out there. Get ready for this. It says 62% of women have rape fantasies. And if you read anything that they're reading, if you watched what they're watching, what do you think 50 Shades of Grey is about? What do you think Twilight is about? I mean, that's just true.
That is true.
You think women want to have the shit beaten out of them, as you said?
Yeah, and it's very disturbing, but it's true.
Do you think your views on women
look
might
at
change
this.
if you actually ever
Morning Glory
had a
Milking
relationship
Farm.
with one or had sex?
You
actually had
can't
a
make
proper
this shit up.
relationship? I mean, people say the reason you're so angry about women is you're basically an incel.
Well, I'm not angry about it.
You sound very angry. You sound very, very
See, that's the thing.
angry about women.
He doesn't in this instance. He might on some of his videos. I don't know. I don't watch them. But my God.
They get
I'm passionate. It's an issue
You're
I'm
not passionate.
about.
You're sounding very bitter about women, as if women have done a terrible disservice to you. But when you don't have relationships, you don't have sex, when are they doing these terrible things to you that's made you so hateful towards women? I'm really curious.
Was that? I don't think that was a hateful clip. I think I was laughing. I said they want men to beat the shit out of them, and that's just true. I mean, when you look at the state of modern women, all they do is lay in their bed, doom scroll. They're chilling out. They're getting a little fat. It is what it is. I don't know what the average weight is, but they're getting a little heavy. And any guy that is playing the field these days will tell you that. I mean, and I know a lot of the Chads. I am an incel. I'm friends with a lot of Chads like Bradley Martin, Clavicular. They agree with me. There's sort of like this alliance between the guys that don't have sex and the guys that get the most sex. We know what women are about. It's the guys in the middle. Guys like you in the middle. It's the beta male orbiters that say, she's amazing. You're a misogynistic pig. Because I don't know what that is. I guess
Well, come on, let me explain to you what I think it is. I think when a 27-year-old guy who's never got laid, never had a meaningful relationship with a woman, says that women shouldn't be allowed to vote, they should stay at home, that all they do is fantasize about being raped and being beaten up, that's what they want, that they're annoying, that they get fat, that they get ugly. That's a misogynist. Now, you may not understand it because your knowledge of women is so incredibly tiny, but actually, you are the embodiment of a misogynist. It couldn't be clearer. And if I was, in a way, you have the deep-rooted misogyny of some of the actual boomers I know. Yet here you are, 27 years old. And most of the current studies show that a lot of men are really disenfranchised from society, no longer have physical relationships with women if they've ever had them, never associate with women, and build up instinctively misogynist views about women. And I fear you're in that position. You're just a bit of a lonely guy who wants to get laid and can't for whatever reason. And it's made you bitter about women. And
he's an influencer. Like you just said, he's like the biggest podcaster or whatever, or close to it, or in one category. He can clearly get laid. I mean, come on. They'll probably be hideous, but they're out there.
I don't know where that's come from, but it's fascinating.
And again, kind of confused that you're bringing it up.
Here's the thing. First of all, you're very caught up in the labels. It's always, you're a racist, you're a misogynist.
You said you
these
were
words
a racist.
mean nothing to me. Oh, hang
you
on.
gave
Whoa,
yourself,
can I respond?
You gave yourself the label.
What is this?
You said, I am a racist. I didn't give you the label.
Okay.
You said, Nick Fuentes, I am a racist.
Calm down. Calm down.
Did you or didn't you?
It's okay.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
so
here's
I didn't give you the label. You did.
Why are you yelling at me?
Because you're trying to infer
screaming at
something that didn't happen. You said, I gave you the label of being a racist. No, you did. You said, I'm a racist. You gave yourself the label.
You're going to have to tone it down a little, all right? You're going to have to bring it down a notch and relax. This is just an interview, okay? Please calm down. All I said is you're hung up. I didn't say you gave me that. Maybe I did.
You did.
But here's what I mean. What I mean is you're just hung up on proving you're a misogynist. Okay, you're a racist. Okay, you denied the Holocaust. And I'm not about the labels,
you
man.
Didn't deny
I'm
the
just
Holocaust.
past that.
As I said to you, look, Nick, as I said to you, I just wanted to go over the stuff that everyone uses out there about you and get you to respond. And we are getting, I think, a long way in this interview.
Okay.
Right? You didn't deny the Holocaust. You accepted there's been a Holocaust of at least 6 million Jews.
I'm a maximalist. I'm a Holocaust.
That is significant.
I think it's more.
You did admit you're a racist, and you have spelled out a thought process about women, which is the purest definition of misogyny that I've ever seen. And you've said you're not gay. So we're getting somewhere.
Yeah. Well,
like,
and look, and I
gay.
own
Good
the
for
labels,
you.
okay? But I just don't care that much about them.
That's fine.
I feel like the whole.
I'm not saying
this
you
is
have,
like a weird.
I'm not saying you have to
ahead.
care, Nick. You don't have to care about any of it. I promise you. Right? That's not why I got you on the show. I wanted to give you a fair crack, which I think I have. We've gone over a lot of stuff. We've got a bit more to go on. I genuinely don't think I've ambushed you with anything you couldn't have been expecting.
No.
I don't think I've been overtly hostile. In fact, when you've asked me to calm down, I've calmed down. I don't want to have a hostile, angry, shouty match with you.
I don't want to have an angry, shouty
spell
match.
out exactly what you've meant about all these things, and people can then be the judge of them. So let's take another break, and we'll come back and talk about Donald Trump, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and others. But you've grown increasingly disillusioned, I think it'd be fair to say. Let's play a recent clip from you about Trump.
We played this game in the first term. We're 10 years in. And you still have these people, I hate to say it, but they're just like in denial. And they're like, okay, everybody, let's all go on Twitter and let's tell Trump, don't screw over your voters. Okay. Hey, Trump, don't hire John Ratcliffe in the CIA. Like, what are we doing? We lost. It's over. The time to make demands was during the election when he needed the votes. He's a lame duck president. He doesn't need anything from us. He's not even on Twitter. He's on Truth Social. So what are you talking about? We're going to all rally and tell him, don't hire yet another neocon?
Now, over the weekend, you posted this on X. You said performative cruelty is the perfect phrase to characterize the Trump admin and the mood of the MAGA movement. In order to compensate for his compromises and failures, Trump has to fall back on mean-spiritedness to appeal to the basest instincts of its followers. It's really sad. I mean, do you think you're the best person, Nick Fuentes, to lecture people about performative cruelty?
It's not performative.
Why? Are you accusing me of being cruel? Is that what that is?
Yeah.
How am I cruel?
You're cruel about black people. You're cruel about women. I mean, you're cruel about a lot of people, and you're very performative.
Okay. I don't think I'm performative. If anything, everyone else is performative. I'm authentic. You know, whatever you want to say about me, it's real. It's from the gut. But yes, I do think it's performative. And what I mean by that is, you know, when they're doing the deportations, they know the deportations are not where the base wants them to be. They deported, the figures are disputed, but from my data, it's 300,000 in the year, which is not a massive deportation. They know the base is unhappy with that. So what do? The deportations that they are carrying out, they do a big spectacle and they arrest everybody and they film it and they put a hype at it. And there's a meanness in there. They played that song, I think from Sabrina Carpenter or something, and they make it a joke. They make it glib, and they do that because they're not delivering on the promise, so they compensate by doing it meaner, edgier, more mean-spirited, so that the base will overlook the fact that it's not happening.
I haven't seen any of this last part, so I'm going to be giving a genuine reaction. That's not an untrue way to look at it.
And I think that's by definition performative cruelty. You can call me a hypocrite, but it's definitely true about what they're doing in the administration.
You went to see Trump at Mar-a-Lago with Ye for dinner. What was that like?
It's been like 2-3 years, yes.
It was very interesting. They're my two heroes. Ye is my hero. Trump is my hero. Even though he's very disappointing, I still have a personal hero of mine. And he's a remarkable person. It was a great conversation. We got along pretty well. He liked me. I liked him. It was a love fest.
I mean, he got attacked afterwards for supping with the white supremacist devil. I mean, do you accept you are a white supremacist?
No, absolutely not.
You don't think white people are superior to black people?
No, I'm a Christian, so I believe everybody is equal before God.
Including women?
Yes.
So you give women equal rights? Then?
No, equal before God.
No.
There's two different
Great.
things.
No. Great. Okay. So you just talked a lot of bullshit, didn't you?
No.
Why are you like mad about this? No.
You want women to be treated equally before God, but you don't want to give them equal rights.
Yeah, because women and men are different.
Look,
do you believe there are two genders?
It's your view.
Do you think there's two genders?
I do think there are two genders, yes.
Okay. And so you mean there's distinction. There are two distinct genders.
I think we should all have the same rights.
We do.
Well, if they're meaningfully distinct, biologically distinct, and they have different social and biological roles, I think it would follow that we would treat them a little bit differently in the law.
Do you think the Catholic Church's teachings reflect that?
I do. Yeah, there's no female priests. Have you ever seen that?
Do you think that the Catholic Church thinks all women should be deprived of the vote?
Yeah, I think so.
No, they don't.
I think they do, yeah.
You think the Catholic Church position is women shouldn't be allowed to vote?
I think so, yeah, but I'm not positive.
No, it's bullshit.
Oh, it should be.
It should be. So if you were Pope, that's what you do. You could be Pope because you're celibate.
That's true. And I'm also from Chicago, like the Pope. But look, I mean, women, it says in the Bible that women have no authority over men, and they can't teach men, and that's why there's no female priests.
It says a lot of things in the Bible.
Catholic...
I mean, do you take every word of the Bible as sacrosanct?
Well, yeah, it's inspired scripture.
That's all of it.
Is this now
all of it is sacrosanct.
A theological debate? Well, it is Catholic doctrine that women should not lead and teach. I mean, you're not interacting with what I'm saying. Why can't women be priests?
They should be.
Okay, well, you're not Catholic. That's not a Catholic position.
I am a Catholic. Many things I disagree with the Catholic Church.
Okay. Well, that kind of is contrary because the whole basis of being Catholic is accepting. It's accepting the authority of the pontiff.
You can be a member of a religion and disagree with parts of that religion. Perfectly reasonable.
You could be, well, yeah. I mean, you could say
unless you're an
extremist. But it wouldn't be true.
If you're an extremist, you can't. Okay. Obviously, you never deviate.
That's just not rigorous.
You never
That's
deviate if you're an extremist. But even the Constitution's been amended. Was it 27 times? People talk about this sacrosanct document. It's been amended 27 times.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Hold the Constitution
this is not rigorous intellectually. This is very
just a statement of fact.
Theology. Okay. But it's fine. Where were we? We're talking about Trump and somehow we got into
Trump.
You're white knighting for women's rights.
On Trump, well, I think women should have the same rights as you and I. You don't. That's fine.
Put on the pink hat, bro. Put on the pink hat. We're waiting.
What's the pink hat for?
For the march, for the women's march. Are we going to see you at the women's march protesting for women's rights and all that?
I think women should have equal rights to men.
They do.
Period.
You carry tampons in case your female friends get a period or something? Like, it's crazy.
I'd have no problem giving a female friend a tampon, would you? I don't suppose you've ever seen a tampon, have you?
Gross. Absolutely not.
You think tampons are gross?
Yeah, they're filled with period blood. Yeah, it's kind of gross.
Wow.
Are you into that? You like that?
Have you ever seen
a lot of tampons?
I don't think you've ever seen it, have you?
Again, with the virgin
I've seen them before.
You've been that close to a woman? Really?
No, I've seen them. Look, I used to live with women, so I've seen them around the house.
I bet you've seen videos, haven't you?
See, and that's the funny thing. Piers Morgan's talking about vaginas. Nick is still on tampons because he's a virgin. Do you get it yet?
What are we doing here, Piers?
I'm not sure.
You really hate that.
I'm not sure.
You're
Nick.
more impressed that I'm a misogynist than you are about anything. It's
not
very
really.
revealing.
I'm actually more exercised about your blatant, self-admitted racism than I'm about anything. But the misogyny runs a close second. Let me ask you about Tucker Carlson, because you had a long sit down with
him being
Tucker
a virgin
Carlson, in which he was oddly. I like Tucker. We get on well. I was with him last week in London, but he gave me a harder time than he gives you. And then afterwards, he was more critical. And then you said this about Tucker.
He's a handler. He handles people. That's what he does. He's a fucking liar and a handler. He goes around telling people, I don't know anything. I don't know. Oh, I know nothing. I don't even have a phone. I am just a clueless tourist. I just traveled to all these countries. And, you know,
I have to say. Very
I don't trust him. And I don't care, you know, maybe that alienates me from people in the conservative movement. I don't care. I'm not going to be a part of it. I'm not going to be a party to whatever that is. Whatever that CIA bullshit is, I'm not going to be a part of it. So, you know, now that I've heard enough from Tucker and I've heard enough from other people and I've seen enough, this guy's not who he says he is. Not an ally. Stay the fuck away from me.
I actually agree with him on that one. Tucker Carlson is... Ugh. He's the worst. Look, whether you're a conservative, a liberal, in the middle like me, a leftist, we can all agree. Tucker and Candace are the fucking worst.
You're weird, dude. You're weird.
See, what would have been great is if you'd said that to him when you were sitting opposite him.
Well, when I was sitting opposite him at the dinner and in the interview, he was nothing but nice. He was very nice to me and very cordial, and he didn't call me an anti-Semite, and he didn't even press me on it at all. And I thought he would, and I almost wanted him to. He was nothing but nice, and we had a great time. We had a really great dinner, really great interview, and I felt really good about it. And the next week on my show, I said, he really surprised me. He's great. And then every interview he's done since, all he does is call me an anti-Semite. He goes, well, I hate his anti-Semitism, and, you know, I wonder why people like him. And so I just think that's two-faced. So after that experience, it kind of turned me off. I didn't like that, but he's going to do what he's going to do. He's still a nice guy, but I think he's two-faced.
What about Candace Owens? You had a sit-down with her. She called you out on a few of your more incendiary comments. You've been attacking her quite virulently recently. What's going on there?
Candace is awful.
Well, you know, it's me and her. We're so complicated. We're on and off. It's very passionate on both sides. You know, I think there's this intense desire to be friends, but a frustration where we disagree with each other. There's a rivalry. But I thought we were going to have a friendly conversation, and then she kind of did the same thing. We're going to go on a show during the war with Iran. We're literally in the middle of a war. And she texted me the day before the United States bombed Fordo. And she said, would you like to come on my show? I said, absolutely. I said, is this going to be about Iran? She goes, I don't do setups. I said, yeah, let's do it. I come on the show, and then she's like got this weird hostile demeanor. She's doing the clip thing. Then she puts it behind a paywall. It was ridiculous. So that really was not nice. And then I think this whole Charlie Kirk thing, I think she's gone insane. I think she's absolutely lost her mind. So I feel sorry for her husband.
What did you feel when Charlie Kirk was assassinated? Where were you when you heard about it?
I was at my house, and a friend of mine who was actually at the event texted me and said, Charlie got shot. I said, who? He said, Charlie Kirk. I said, oh my gosh, that's terrible. And honestly, it was devastating. I didn't like Charlie Kirk at all. And we had an intense rivalry, and he hated me. But honest to God, I was devastated. I was emotionally affected by it. I didn't even do a show that night because I was beside myself. So it was rough. I mean, it was hard to watch.
When you say you were beside yourself, I mean, you hated him.
I don't hate anybody. I didn't hate him, but I really didn't like him. I intensely disliked him, and I didn't agree with him.
He called you vermin, didn't he?
He did. Yeah, he hated me also.
But you were still beside yourself when you heard what happened to him.
I was. I thought it was disgusting what was done to him, and it was tragic, and it was horrifying.
Which it was.
Do you fear an attack like that on yourself? Have you upped your own security because of this? Because your profile's got exponentially higher since what happened to Charlie Kirk.
I have increased my security, and but something similar like that happened to me. Someone came to my house with a gun about a year ago, almost exactly, trying to kill me, and he was shot and killed in my alleyway. So I've had increased security for a while. It's a bad time out there, and I do believe it was a left-wing person that killed him. I think it was a left-wing person that tried to kill me. So yeah, I take it very seriously.
Yeah, absolutely.
Elon Musk said on his X platform that you're a Fed. You're a paid-up hire of the government. Is that true?
No.
100. You've never worked for the government in any capacity.
I've never talked to federal law enforcement, and actually, I've testified to that fact under oath when I was subpoenaed by the Congress. People leave that part out, but I got subpoenaed, I think, in January 2022. I think it was. And I was deposed by the subcommittee, the House Select Subcommittee, on January 6th. And they asked me, did you speak with any federal law enforcement? And under oath, I said, no, I've never had contact with them. I've never turned over devices. So no, absolutely not.
There's been footage that's come out again this week. This is you at the January the 6th riots. Let's take a look.
It appears we are taking the Capitol back. Keep marching and don't relent, never relent. Break down the barriers and disregard the police. This Capitol belongs to us.
I will say this is one thing where I think that he is being dishonest, because you have to admit, people who even said that they were going, or people who were even just there, anyone who crossed the barriers, some of them didn't even know they had crossed the barriers, were arrested. Nick Fuentes wasn't. Enrique Tarrio, the leader of the Proud Boys, was arrested. He wasn't even there. I think he was in Miami. And he was arrested for January 6th. That's the crazy thing. That's one reason I think Fuentes might, in fact, be a Fed. But it's hard to say, just because he was never arrested for this.
The police are evacuating the Capitol! Politicians throw rocks! Scurry out of the people's house!
So you're heard there shouting down your loud hailer, break down the barriers and disregard the police. The Capitol belongs to us now. What did you mean by that?
He meant that.
I think it's pretty self-explanatory. The Capitol belongs to the people.
Disregard the police. So you don't support law and order?
No, I support law and order. But on that day, the police were brutal. The police killed somebody, Ashley Babbitt. And, they were throwing people off of the rafters. They killed multiple people. So
when disregarding the police is the first step to anarchy, isn't it?
Well, I think the first step to anarchy is when the government rigs the election, which is what happened. That is when the government loses its legitimacy, and its enforcers, consequently, do also.
Well,
that's exactly what happened in 2020.
There is no evidence the government rigged the election.
The government.
You know that. You're a bright guy.
Well, let's talk about it. You want to talk about the election of 2020?
Yeah. I think Trump lost it fair and square. I think he fought the wrong argument about the stolen election. I've said to him, to his face,
I agree.
The argument he should have said is that the deliberate suppression of things like the Hunter Biden laptop scandal from the media, by social media, by big tech, was actually a deliberate attempt to subvert the result of the election. And that's a much better argument because it's undeniable. When the New York Post that had that exclusive were basically shadow banned off all social media for the 2 weeks before the election, that was an absolute disgrace. And if I was Donald Trump, I would focus on that as being my main argument that that election was slanted against him. When he goes off into saying that there was widespread rigging and voter systems were wrong, we've litigated all this now through various court cases, various Republican judges.
I don't have an argument with any of
there
this.
was no rigging of that kind.
I agree
In fact,
with
the
Piers
American election system is
on that
accepted by most people around the world as being one of the best in the world, one of the most reliable. So I just think he fought the wrong argument. If he said the deliberate suppression of damaging stories to the Bidens, which could have swung the election, was outrageous and unacceptable, I'm 100% behind him. But by building this spurious argument that it was all rigged through voting systems and so on, he lost me.
I agree, and that's one of Trump's biggest downfalls, I think, will be, is that he calls everything hoax. And while there are hoax elements to it, like the good people on both sides hoax, which was a hoax, and people will be like, well, did he say it? Yes, but there's a context to it, and there are words he said before and after that contradict the narrative that you're pushing. The fact that someone said those exact words in that exact order does not negate the words leading up to and leading away from that very small fraction of what he said that day.
Well, I agree about the voting systems, but, when they went into the machines, I think that was ridiculous. However, what has to be accounted for is that in 2016, 35% of the votes were cast by mail. By 2020, it was 70% because of the pandemic. So you doubled the amount of votes that happened by mail. They called it in-person early voting. They called it a variety of different things. And the other thing that they changed is they solicited the mail-in ballots. So they sent ballots to people's houses. And once you do that, I mean, you have absentee balloting normally, but it's a process. You got to give your social security number, your ID. They send it to you. There's regulations in place. This is an election where they double the amount of mail-in votes, and they sent ballots to people's houses. And when you do that, you break the chain of custody. So they send the ballot out, and then they tell people return it at a 24-hour ballot drop site that's unsupervised. There's thousands of them, and they're going to hope that all the ballots that find their way into these drop boxes were filled out by the person that the ballot was intended for. And I know that didn't happen. I'll tell you why. My uncle has been dead for 26 years. He got a ballot in 2020. It was mailed to my parents' house. And that was happening in nursing homes. That was happening in apartment buildings.
But you also know that every independent body that has looked at this has concluded there was no widespread rigging, that it was a free and fair election, and Trump lost. And the bottom line is he should stop going on about it anyway, because he won back the White House in 2024. By your, as you have been so keen to tell me, move on, right? No one wants to look back too far.
That's a separate argument. I mean, you can say that he should stop talking about it, but whether it was rigged or not is actually relevant to what happened on January 6th, because what happened on J 6th is people were outraged about it. People were furious that, by the way, there's never been an independent ballot audit in all the states where there was alleged to be rigging. That has not happened. And certainly it did not happen up until January 6th. And people said, this is ridiculous. They're stealing it.
If people, honestly, if either you or Donald Trump or anybody else wants to show me, I said this to him when I interviewed him last, if you show me the actual hardcore, incontrovertible evidence, then great. I've never seen it. Joe Rogan asked him. He didn't produce it with Joe Rogan. It's just never been produced. But look, I don't want to labour the point on that. So I suppose the more interesting question now, as your influence rises in the conservative movement in America, and there's a lot of splits going on amongst MAGA over a number of issues, and about you, and you know this, is your split with Trump irrevocable? Do you feel now, as we head towards the year of the midterms, that it's time to now look to who his successor will be, and who do you think that person should be?
Well, it's not irrevocable, but I am very pessimistic about this administration. And succession is something that I've been interested in for as long as I've been doing this show. And I think it's very clear that they are grooming J.D. Vance to be that successor. And by they, I mean Elon Musk, Tucker Carlson, Peter Thiel. There seems to be an organization that was put in place roughly around 2022 when Peter Thiel was very active in the midterm elections. He spent, I think, over $30 million, $15 million for Vance, $15 million for Masters, spent a lot of money in a lot of other congressional races, trying to unseat the Republicans that voted for impeachment in 21, and also building out a media market, building out a patronage network, funding things like Passage Press, Sovereign House, a number of other projects to create sort of like a self-contained media ecosystem. And Vance is clearly the selected nominee. That is who the interests want. And they've been pushing for him very strongly. So I think he's the heir apparent right now. There's a forceful push. I've heard good things about him. I've heard bad things about him too. And where I think it needs to go is I think we need to return to the message from 2016, what Trump said in the first election, which is we need to drain the swamp. We need to get the money out of politics, the super PACs, the special interests, put America first in foreign policy and the wars, close the border and deport the illegals, and reindustrialize America, bring back manufacturing, bring back jobs. We're in this Cold War with China. We need America to have productive capacity again. We need America to have wealth. So I think whoever is going to bring us back to that, that's who I'm going to support. And I haven't seen enough from Vance yet.
You called J.D. Vance's wife a Jeet. What does that mean?
It's a slur for Indians.
Why would you use that?
Well, you want the honest answer?
Because you're a racist?
No, there's actually a different reason. The reason why I said that, if you watch the whole show, did you watch that whole show, by the way?
No, but you've admitted you use that slur. I'm just curious why you would use that about
he doesn't watch
a woman with
show.
her
I'll tell you,
heritage.
there's a really important reason why, and this is why context matters. If you look online at the people that are supporting J.D. Vance the most, they are racist. They're racist also, let's say. And they look at someone like myself. I don't support J.D. Vance. And they say, you're brown. You're a third worldist. They are gleefully participating in the cruelty. You could say the performative cruelty of the Trump administration. They say, you're going back. You have 100 days until you're being deported. You're going in a crystal. And then they tell us to vote for J.D. Vance. And so all I did on the show is I said, you have basically racist chuds that post memes about Indians all day on Twitter, memes about third worldists and Palestinians even. But then they want to turn around and support a guy who has said on Twitter, how dare you say I'm racist? I have non-white kids and I'm in an interracial marriage. And all I said is I just said that's a little ironic. I said that's hypocritical. And Vance is going to have to explain to all of his supporters who have gassed him up as the real mass deportation candidate. He's going to have to explain to them what's going on with that. What is with the contradiction? Because
and you don't feel any accountability for the millions of young people that will hear you use that slur.
I definitely don't agree with Fuentes on that one.
No, I think that's ridiculous.
Okay. Let's take a final break and come back with a little kind of summary of how you think this interview has gone for you.
Okay.
If you're a fan of epic fantasy, Arthurian legend, or Dylan in a rival episode, a full month, and with members, so you don't. We've been talking for nearly 2 hours. What is your view of how the interview has gone?
I think it was great. Honestly, I think it was a tough interview. You're a tough interviewer. But I don't think there were surprises. I will not say it was an ambush because it wasn't. I sort of anticipated that you would make some choices about how you wanted it to go, and I was fine with it. So I thought it was terrific.
As a Catholic, you're probably aware the Jerusalem Post has recently called on the Pope to openly condemn you. Would it matter to you if the Pope did? He's an American Pope, obviously.
It would be very disheartening, yes.
Why?
Because he's our spiritual leader. He's the head of the church. He's the vicar of Christ. So if he condemned me, that would be very disheartening. And it would depend upon what he would say exactly. But yeah, I wouldn't like that. I wouldn't like that at all.
If he condemned you because you've openly admitted to being a racist on this show?
Oh, this racist, I would be disappointed if he said that, because I think that word racist it means something different to everybody. And so I think that's just silly. I think that's just semantic.
Have you ever been in love in your life?
No, like romantically, no.
Yeah, never.
No.
Do you think that's part of the problem?
What's the problem?
Why you are the way you are.
Oh, and what's the way I am? What are you trying to say?
I've given people 2 hours of the way you are. You're unashamed about a lot of it.
I don't think I have a problem. I think I'm cheerful, boisterous. Look, unlike you, I'm willing to be a little well, I guess you're willing to be provocative, but I'm willing to be very provocative, and I'm a free thinker. And I don't like to be tone policed. I don't like to be told about, people are going to tone police and play moral cop about you can't make this joke or you can't make this statement. And I think that's just about being intellectually open. I'm a believer in openness, and I like ideas.
I completely agree. I think you should be perfectly free to express yourself exactly how you see fit. My problem is how you see fit with some of the things that you say. And we've been through a lot of them. And I think
it's completely
people who
okay
don't
for
know
him to
you
be offended by that, so long as he doesn't cancel people.
Very well, will have been shocked in parts and surprised in other parts. But in totality, they can see you for what you are. I think we've got a lot nearer to what the real Nick Fuentes is in the last 2 hours than we probably have seen from your other recent interviews. Would you agree?
No, I mean, the clip thing, we've done the clip thing. We've all seen the clip show. Everyone's seen the clips. You think you're the first one to do the ADL rap sheet. So here you said this, and then here you said that. I've been playing that game for 10 years. So this is honestly more of the same, to tell you the truth.
Nick Fuentes, I appreciate you coming on Uncensored. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Well, my thanks to Nick Fuentes, and my thanks to the hundreds of thousands of you watching this special live episode of Piers Morgan Uncensored. As I said during the interview, I think it was firm but fair, but you can all make up your own minds. If you like what you do, please like and subscribe the channel so that we can keep doing it. I'm back to
and I have
Stephen Crowder, who wrote on our YouTube channel How to Not Conduct an Interview 101. An eagle-eyed.
Okay, so Stephen Crowder, who also did an interview with Nick Fuentes in the same week as this one, I think it was a few, maybe 4 or 5 days before this interview, came on Piers Morgan to air some grievances based on just a couple little bits of it. And based off what you've just seen, we'll watch just a little bit of this, not the whole thing.
Member of the Uncensored team, noticed that one of the first eager superfans to comment on my interview with Nick Fuentes was Stephen Crowder, the host of Louder with Crowder, who wrote on our YouTube channel How to Not Conduct an Interview 101. And Mr. Crowder joins me now.
Completely true.
Welcome to you, Mr. Crowder.
Thank you for having me, sir. Merry Christmas. Or do you guys say Happy Christmas? I've heard it both ways.
We do both. I'd be very happy to wish you a Happy Christmas and a Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Despite you impugning my qualities as an interviewer.
Yeah, you impugned
you
yourself
did expand
there,
on this. You said Piers Morgan is a liberal at heart, which I think is probably right. So he spent the whole interview trying to gotcha his way through identity politics on a guy who already rejects the premise. I did think that was an interesting commentary, actually. I would start by saying I wasn't trying to gotcha him because I'd already made it clear.
You were.
I was going to put to him, I'd already said this publicly, I was going to put to him all the more contentious things that he has said, which have gained.
Look, and gotcha journalism is fine. It's its own subclass. If you like it, fine. I personally do not. Unless it's really, really funny.
Notoriety and challenge him properly about it, which I think I did. I don't categorize that as a gotcha. He got very exercised about the story involving his father. And I said on an earlier
his full name.
Panel we did that actually, if I had my time again, I wouldn't have named his father, although it's easily discoverable.
Even though he did,
but I wouldn't
when
have
he
done
was talking
that.
to Dr.
I
Phil
would
about
still
it.
have told the anecdote because as I tried to explain to Nick Fuentes, the story was put in the public domain by Nick Fuentes about his father in a way in which you could only construe from it that his father made decisions when Nick Fuentes was young, which appeared to be racist decisions. And I was curious whether he felt he was a product of that environment. Now, he went nuts about that.
As he should have, because again, Nick Fuentes has had at least one assassination attempt that we know of. And you put his dad's name out there. Yes, it is publicly accessible information, but you have to admit that Americans are a bunch of lazy husk of what we should be. And we don't even read past headlines most of the time. We barely listen to interviews, let alone research who someone's father is to kill them. But if you imply heavily and straight out say that he's the reason Nick Fuentes is the way he is, some of those extremists could take action.
Perfectly entitled to, and he's come after me and my family. If he's perfectly entitled to do all that, I don't care. But I was curious why you felt that I was playing gotcha with him and
Because
not just actually, I think, doing my job as a journalist and just challenging him about the more contentious things that he said.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I don't think you challenged him on the most contentious things. And by the way, it's not an impugnment of your character. It's a different interviewing style, right? I think that trying to shame someone like Nick Fuentes for being racist, for being a misogynist, like that's a layup for him. He's already been accused of that, and I don't think it's very fruitful. I mean, I don't want to conflate gotcha with challenging. So I would say, by the way, yeah, if he's going after your family, Nick Fuentes, if you're watching, strongly condemn that from your audience if anything is happening out of line. But I also would say, when the guy makes a good point and says, hey, you know what, my dad's not here to defend himself, could we move on from that? Don't do it 6 more times. But I counted 6 times, and you're not able to get to where you actually have disagreements. See, when I sat down with Nick, and yeah, I played his clips back, people could argue that it was tedious, but I would play a 1.5-minute clip, you know, a 2-minute clip, because I wanted to show it in context. And I was able to actually lay out, we were actually able to contrast our policy, our prescription differences, where people know. And so I think if you go after, father being racist, I don't even know that you would construe his father's being racist because he doesn't like Applebee's. No one likes Applebee's.
That's true.
No one likes Olive Garden.
Hang on. That's not.
That's true, except for lower middle class white people and alcoholic chicks from the South. No one likes Applebee's. I mean, that's true. I can say that because that's where I live.
Not what he said. He literally told the story that his father didn't like that particular restaurant chain or others because they were known for black fare.
Sure.
Well, that's racist.
Black fare? What if people don't like black fare as far as food? What if people don't want to be somewhere where they're more likely to end up in a World Star hip hop video? This is where we get to the issue of you and him discussing per capita. Right? Let me ask you this. Like you're a Catholic. We were talking about this. You said you'd be happy to talk about it. What do you think is going to be fruitful in attacking a celibate Catholic for not getting laid?
I didn't attack him.
You're driving people into his arms.
I didn't attack him.
He said he needs to get laid.
I think he does.
That's a heresy.
I think he does. I think he's an incel.
So you advocate heresy.
I think he's, well, I perfectly understand if you're a devout Catholic, which I'm not. If you're a devout, I was brought up a Catholic and I was given spiritual guidance by Catholic nuns, and a lot of my family are very devout Catholics. I'm not particularly, but I still adhere to, broadly adhere to Catholicism, albeit there are parts of the teachings I don't agree with. So that's my position on it. But I can understand if he'd said to me, the reason I've never had sex.
Then why bring it up, Piers? Why is it relevant whether he's been late or not? Because I said in my interview specifically, just so you know, I'll answer for everything I say. When I interviewed him, I said, I hate it when people use something that should be seen as a virtue as an attack. Out of all the views, if you view them as reprehensible, and I, by the way, strongly disagree with a lot of Nick's views, the least relevant is whether he's celibate as a devout Catholic. That's like a good thing, and so you actually give him the moral high ground. He says, hey,
had he said
my
to
dad
me,
out of it.
Yeah, but hang on, you're putting up a better defence, if I may suggest, than he did, because had he said to me, I'm a devout Catholic, and the reason I haven't had sex is because the Catholic Church forbids that and says you should be married before you have sex. Perfectly reasonable answer. That's not what he said. He never said that at all.
So you didn't do your research, because he said that literally dozens of times.
He may have said.
And again, what the fuck does it matter if someone's a virgin that has no layout on anything, especially a rich virgin? I mean, either that means you're completely despicable, but if you're someone who's in the public eye, believe me, there's plenty of people out there.
Elsewhere, he didn't say it to me. I only asked him about that stuff because there is a view that he is what they call an incel, and that he whips up that kind of mentality, and that's why he's such a misogynist about women and so on. It's an interesting thing to ask him. He seemed to me quite happy to answer it all. He was quite emphatic in his answers. Fine. I didn't see that as an attack. I was joking about getting laid because it seems to me he's a very angry guy.
Can I jump in for a second here? Because this is where I think this is important, right? His audience will. People out there, by the way, some who are voluntarily celibate because they're devout Christians, but also if you look at the dating pool out there, I don't think it's misogyny to say, I wouldn't date one of those young women if they were growing on my ass. And they're actually out there living in a world that's been created. They will identify you as someone who's helped create that, right? Someone who says, I don't care if the UK no longer looks white. I don't care if we lose our cultural identity. Hey, it's great, women's rights. And they're looking at their prospects. And when you say, you're celibate or whatever it is, you haven't gotten laid, you're an incel. Guess what? You give him the moral high ground. When you say, hey, what about your dad? And he asks you, and I will say, he asked pretty respectfully, don't do that. You go on 6 more times. What did you ask about Stalin?
Because I thought what he was doing.
You said little twerp.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
You said little twerp.
Stephen, I hear you. I hear you. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying, honestly, I'm not, because I've got a lot of respect for you. I think that
Well, thank you.
I think what he tried to do, I think he was taken aback when I revealed that anecdote about his father. And I think he didn't want to address what he actually said on air with that anecdote, because it's pretty damning when you hear it. And I think he decided very quickly, because he's a smart, quick operator, to turn it into me attacking him about his dad who wasn't there and how disgusting and blah, blah. And that's fine, but I kept trying to bring him back. I kept saying, look, it's not an attack on your father.
To his dad.
Well, I wasn't attacking his dad. I was saying, if you tell a story which looks to the world when they hear it, that you're saying your father was racist, can that have an influence on you as you grow up? That was the question I was making. I didn't want him getting off the hook of answering that question about his environment, having heard him in his own words put that story out there.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. In trying to keep him 6 times, and that's what I counted, on the hook for his dad maybe being a racist. Look, if your dad's in the Klan, it couldn't be relevant. It has nothing to do with the price of tea in China, right? What hook
well,
would
it is
matter
if you openly admit to being a racist,
hold on, asking him
I mean, is it though? Because as we all know, Destiny, a very prominent, hard leftist, lunatic Twitch streamer, I think, or he might just be on Kick these days. His parents were MAGA. They're like very, very MAGA. And Destiny is, well, Destiny.
About Stalin. And I say this because the last time I was on your show, remember we were talking about Tucker Carlson.
Yeah.
And by the way, I would hope that you would be just as hard on Candace and people like Tucker for some of the things that they've said.
Sure.
I think it's fair to be even-handed across the board.
Yeah, I agree.
Stalin, I said I would like to ask him about that, right? Is he a fan? Is he actually an admirer? Or does he just mean to say he's fascinated? What did you ask? You asked him about his dad 6 times. You attacked him as and I don't mean attack him. You present him but racist, misogynist, right? Stuff that he already knows. That's the playbook. You'll drive your fans into his own arms. What was your question on Stalin?
Well, I asked him.
There wasn't one.
Well, there was actually.
There wasn't one.
No, you're missing.
There wasn't.
No, there was. You just didn't hear it. So I actually brought on a British journalist called Danny Finkelstein, who spent 90 seconds in a video.
It had nothing to do with Stalin. Nothing.
Talking about what Stalin and Hitler had done to his family.
Hitler, primarily.
I did it in the context of him saying Hitler's cool, but Stalin was addressed in that, and he was totally dismissive of a Jewish man talking about his family being annihilated by Stalin and Hitler.
Do you hear yourself? Do you think that's going to be effective or fruitful?
Well, it wasn't.
On a guy named Finkelstein. No, it wasn't. You didn't ask him. Let me read you what I asked him about Stalin. Okay, because I think a lot of people, you responded saying it was softball. Did you watch the whole interview that I conducted with Nick?
No. Well, before you read what you're about to read, let me play a little mashup of you interviewing Nick Fuentes, and you can respond to this. Hang on.
Okay, but did you watch the whole interview?
Yeah,
Nick Fuentes, do you hate all Jews, sir?
No, I don't.
Okay. Do you consider yourself an anti-Semite, a noted anti-Semite?
No.
Okay. Clears that up. Do you believe that white people are superior to all other races on the planet?
No.
Okay. Do you want to eradicate all non-whites from the United States?
No.
Okay. Well, Barry Weiss will be very happy to hear that. No doubt she's watching. And then because this happens a lot, right? It's Tucker did this with you. Fed. Nick Fuentes, are you in fact a Fed?
No.
Okay.
I got to say, mate, it's one of the most forensic examinations of interviewing masterclass.
And again, you can tell that he didn't watch the actual interview because he goes deeper on all these questions a little later. He just burned through those for a very specific reason, which I'm sure he'll get to. But I watched that interview as well, and I thought it was weird, and then he came back around, and I mean, he has some more pointed ones. He didn't, step on his neck or anything, but I mean, there's always interview too.
I think I've ever seen. I mean, the follow-ups were magnificent.
Nick,
magnificent.
Piers, did you watch the whole interview?
No.
No, you didn't. Okay, so one of us came here quite a bit more prepared, which seems to be your approach with Nick. So let me read you my exact question on Stalin. Those were layups specifically because, again, I think you and I both agree, right? We want to have reasonable discussions. You don't want to radicalize people.
I agree.
Get rid of...
And this is why every time I tell anyone, if you are watching anyone clip anybody and you're enraged by this, you're made to feel a certain kind of way, rewind 10 seconds. Then let it play for an extra 10 seconds after. And then keep doing this. And if you get to more than 2 minutes out, then you might have a good idea of what happened. But if you only watch those clips, you won't know what happened just before, just after, or even later on in the interview. There ain't no such thing as halfway crooks, man. You have to do it all out. Otherwise, you're just a grifter. And you don't really mean what you say. Or you think you do, and you're just lazy.
Get rid of the bull crap on the outset so that we could actually get to real differences. And I think here's something that I really pursue when I interview someone: truth and understanding. I asked him about Stalin. Let me read you the exact question later on. It would help if you watched the whole interview. I said, my question to you would be, I know that you've said we want a Catholic theocracy or a Christian theocracy. I've heard the word dictatorship. Correct me if I'm wrong. I would ask you, since the end point seems similar to where Stalin would want us to reach, swap atheism for Catholicism, would you be able to name, or is there any one thing that you think America concretely should copy about Stalin's rule or revolutionary methods to get there? And guess what? We were able to actually answer. We were able to actually discuss it. How many retractions on your show? 0. Quite a few on mine. How many times did we actually get into discussions regarding where we disagree? And let me tell you where I disagree with him. I'm to the right of him on some issues. I'm definitely to the right of him economically. He's a pretty big sort of centralized economy guy, but we did it in good faith. And I presented him with his own questions. We got that out of the way. If you don't watch the whole interview, yeah, you can take 15 seconds. Did you get to any, that was my question. And yours was, well, you never asked about Stalin. He said, do you still think Hitler is fucking cool?
Yeah.
How'd that work out for you? What'd you learn?
That he does.
And that's new? That he thinks they have nice outfits? They're Hugo Boss.
No, but he didn't say that as his reason.
Who cares? It's something you already knew. The real point of journalism and interviewing outlandish, over the top, or visually cruel or evil people is to, one, let people know about this person, and 2, and most importantly, to get to the bottom about who they really are or what their real motives are. Not just to tell everybody what, not even you know about it, because he didn't even research any of this crap.
Did you learn about Stalin, Piers? Did you learn about
I learned this about Stalin. I learned this about
disenfranchised?
As I said to you, I played a clip from a guy who literally lost family members, close family members, to Stalin and to Hitler.
Sure.
And Nick Fuentes' response was to mock him and then to unleash his groypers on this guy who've been now mercilessly abusing and mocking him about the loss of his family members to Stalin and Hitler for the last 48 hours. Now, you might think that's acceptable, or that somehow I didn't push that hard enough.
This is why legacy media is done. You can't compete. Look, guys like Nick, guys like Andrew Wilson on your show, they've come up. I mean that you were at CNN, HLN for a very long time, and you're still following the same format. And so there, accusing someone young of being racist is a win. But with people who've grown up being accused of racism, of misogyny their whole life, they don't give a shit. And so you should get to the point where you can actually understand. Here's the one thing I would say that would help. Listen. You weren't listening to the guy, so you're not even able to lay out where you disagree, and your own audience.
Well, I don't think you heard that. I don't think you could have heard the whole interview either. Then, I mean, we
just watched it. What do you think?
I'm going to go and listen to yours in full.
Every last second, pillar to post.
Okay, but look, for 2 hours I talked to the guy. I came with an open mind. I wanted to know whether it was performative, whether he did these things, whether he said things as a joke, whether if he did and it blew up, he regretted any of them, or whether he really means this stuff. And I learned a lot more about Nick Fuentes in the 2 hours than I knew before. You probably knew it all already because you've interviewed him before. I haven't. It's the first time I'd ever met him.
I've never interviewed him before. This is my first time I've ever spoken with him or interacted with him whatsoever. I did do my research, and I already knew what his stance was on Solon. I already knew how he clarified it. I already knew his stance on racism. And here's what I would say, if I'm being as accurate as I can be, right, for the general populace. I think most people, if they listen to Nick Fuentes, his views on race and crime, they'd say, okay, someone like that has a case. Certainly any men under the age of 25. I think a lot of people would broad strokes categorize it as anti-Semitic. We were able to get into that. I was able to communicate that I thought Islamic immigration is a greater threat than global Jewry. And guess what? He disagreed, but we understood each other. You don't de-radicalize people by marginalizing everyone who actually makes good points, by spending 6 follow-up questions on a racist
You know what?
by
Okay,
accusing them of not getting laid and calling them twerps.
Stephen, here's what I'll concede. Like I did with the initial reaction that you did. I will concede. I didn't get him. I mean, other than him saying, I believe now, actually, in a satirical way. In other words, I don't think he really meant it. But when he said he did think at least 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust, he did it in a way that others, like Glenn Greenwald, have told me he didn't mean it. Whatever, it's up to him. It's down to him. I don't think I don't think I got anywhere with Nick Fuentes. I don't think I got anywhere to him changing his mind about anything. I certainly didn't get anywhere in stopping him unleashing his Groyper hounds on me or my family, whatever.
Yes,
I don't care.
you're the victim.
I've had far worse, and it's fine. If you're in the media jungle long enough, you get these pile-ons occasionally, and it's just better just to ride them out with a smile on your face. It's whatever. But I didn't get anywhere with it. So in a way, I am listening to you because I'm curious how you do get anywhere with somebody like that when his whole shtick is really just on doubling, trebling, quadrupling down, and he says things which I genuinely do find really offensive. When he talks about women in the way that he does, it is really offensive.
Well, let me answer. Here's how you get somewhere, by not playing gotcha. So, for example, when you start off with, if you've done the research, you know it's facetious. Same thing that Jillian Michaels did. Do you think all women need to be raped? No, he was citing, by the way, study after study that you can replicate that 62% of women have some form of a rape fantasy. Yes, so sexually dominant. But when you start off with that, guess what? Young people go, okay, all right, same old, same old. You could have asked him, hey, what are your views on women?
I started off with this thing that all women are annoying and they all get old and fat and ugly.
What part of that do you disagree with?
All of it.
You don't think that women get fatter and more attractive? Men do too, by the way.
I think men largely do.
You and I are both getting fatter and uglier. And I think that a lot of women, particularly if you go on TikTok and you see generationally, I think they're annoying. And I think that is a symptom of a serious problem, which is deeply rooted feminism, which, by the way, is the same source problem for LGBTQAI. And the reason that you have biological men winning Olympic medals, right? You see that as a problem. You need to get to where you diverge or what the root of the problem is. And here's the thing, you're never going to get there.
Sorry, I have this problem where anytime Steve Crowder talks, I listen because he's, as you can see, very well sourced. He actually looks and tries to look in left-wing sources for most of his talking points. And he can discredit a lot of the left-wing talking points with more left-wing talking points. It's kind of fascinating.
If you just discount young people who are facing different problems than you, I understand. I don't think they're right on all of it, but I understand it because I was listening. I think you could have listened to him better. If your goal is the pursuit of truth, and actually, and I would imagine your goal, if you think his views are abhorrent, by the way, and I think some of them are. So if your goal is to peel some of those people off, give him the floor to explain context so that you can contrast it. But it ended up getting back to gotcha.
Okay, but final question. Which of his views do you find abhorrent then?
Well, when he talks about, for example, I would say wrong. I would say wrong, the idea of global Jewry, and I told him that. The idea that massive third world immigration, particularly from Islamic countries, that largely rests at the feet of the Jews. I think it rests at the feet of these Islamic nations, of these third world nations that I would call crap holes, and that's considered a more offensive view. I think it's a problem, for example, when when you ask him if he's a racist, he's going to answer yes. He's going to answer yes, but he actually answered, by the way, everyone's racist. And then he actually offered a qualifier.
Mitchell,
and through that, you're racist because you live in a largely white area. By the way, there's nothing wrong with that. You can't just ignore the points and go back to a soundbite. That's how a guy like Nick Fuentes, that's how he thrives. And by the way, people in the comment section, your own comment section, I get that some of them are trolling. Go easy, guys, on Piers. It's Christmas. I think you were trying to do a good job. What I'm telling you,
listen,
I'm telling you, Piers, is that it's not the way to approach a different generation of people who come up in a blood sport debate like they did on Twitch. It's going to actually give them a win.
I think it means Twitter there.
Yeah, I think I buy into the argument they couldn't give a shit, actually. And that's one of the more depressing aspects of it.
Easier to dismiss them.
But if I worried about their comments, I would turn the comments off, and they're wide open. So bring your worst, you little groypers. Stephen Crowder, Merry Christmas to you. Always good to have you on. And I enjoy our conversations about these things. I think I get stuff out of them. I hope you do too. We always have an interesting chat, so thank you.
I do. Happy Christmas. I appreciate you taking the time.
All the best.
Okay. So there we have it. We've gone all the way through a little bit of history on Piers Morgan, a little bit of, all of the interview with him and Fuentes, and then a little post-game controversy and conversation with Stephen Crowder. So, guys, just basically watch things and try to understand them a bit more deeply. Don't be an interviewer like Piers Morgan. Be more like Stephen Crowder, but with your own set of beliefs. Always come with the facts. Always make sure that you present the facts to those people who may not believe the same as you. And I mean, he's kind of a dick about it sometimes, but for the most part, he always comes with the ability to have a conversation and potentially change at least one of your minds. Or meet in the middle, maybe. Who knows? But, guys, I want to appreciate you for sticking through. I see one or two of you stuck with me for the entire time. Very much appreciate. I'm so sorry. I've got the hiccups. But I appreciate you for stopping by. I don't know what I'm going to do for the show in the morning. But I might get on and stream a little bit later today. I definitely will tomorrow night. I'll probably finish Marvel Cosmic Invasion tomorrow night. I might play something different today. I don't know. But either way, thanks for coming down this with me. If you would, drop a like. If you really enjoyed it, drop a share. Yeah. Hey, I appreciate it, Robka. Thank you for sticking it through with me. I do a morning show, just so y'all know. I do a morning show Monday through Friday at it's early. It's like 5:45 a.m. until I run out of time before I have to jet out to work. And then I do I think this week I'm going to move away from a Monday night stream and move it over to Wednesday. I might still do it this Monday, depending on what I have to do. But I think my weekday gaming stream will be on Wednesdays. Just out of fairness for, anyway. But, and then before too long, I have a D&D stream that's going to kick in. That one will probably be exclusively on Kick, I want to say. I might do it on Twitch and Kick, but more than likely won't be on YouTube, that one. So, I appreciate you all for coming by. And again, eventually YouTube will just be a clip channel, and you'll have to go to the other places to get anything from it. But I appreciate you all very much for being here. Yeah, and if you would give me a follow on Rumble so I could start streaming the political stuff over there. That'd be great. Another place to separate game